Good afternoon. Welcome again, and thank you for coming. It's on. Is this better? Okay. I can never hold this right, so tell me if it slips, okay? Can you hear me now? Okay, good. I'm so glad you're here. And if you were here last night, you know what a treat you're in for today. If you weren't here last night, I hope you know about Walt, and because I'm going to talk more about their ministries today than about his career history, since most people already heard that. But they do have a ministry in Newport, Tennessee. They have a mustard seed store, and the people who come in there are like people from all over. Stop in, or the locals come in, and they're a real blessing to all the people who come in. And when I've been there once, and when you walk in, it's like you're at home, and they're going to give you something that if you're suffering from something, they're going to help you in any way they can, and they're wonderful people. They started at one time an Appalachian Ministries to help the children in the area, and some of the things that they have done for the children there, and they don't get to go to that as much because they've gotten very, very busy, but when they did help with the children, some of the stories that they can tell you about that is very interesting. So we're so thrilled to have Walt today. And I'm not going to take a lot of time, but I want to remind you that if you're going to ask a question from the audience, please have a microphone, because like me, most of our voices don't carry. And we'll have some water and refreshments in the back. And does everybody have a folder? Okay. Tomorrow, I just want to remind you, tomorrow of the time at 10 o'clock till 1:30, we will have the seminar, and then at 1:30, we'll have a light lunch. So without further ado, I'll introduce you to Walt, and
Good afternoon, y'all. So, wasn't it a good dinner? It was good. In the mountains, we call it dinner because we call it breakfast, dinner, and supper. Well, there's so much to cover this afternoon, and one, I'm being hog-tied by these cameras here. That's kind of tough. But there's so much to share with y'all, and sometimes I feel like a quarter horse, and Mary Lou pulls back on my reins and says, slow down. I am from the South, but sometimes I can talk like someone from New York City real fast because there's so much to cover, so much. And so last night, we didn't get to finish, so we're going to finish that real quickly, and then we'll jump into this afternoon's topic of how to develop an effective lifestyle system. So last night, we talked about 4 laws of health. What were those 4 laws of health? Yeah, so we had nutrition, diet, the fuel. What's the next one? Exercise. The next one? Water. The next one is sunlight. And so what we'll do is we're going to jump into temperance. And for me, temperance is making the right decision. I used to think that temperance was just don't do alcohol, don't do drugs, and don't do tobacco, and I'm good. That's all you have to worry about. But is there more than that? And to me, temperance is again, it's making the right decision. Now, is moderation in all things, is that a good thing? Is moderation in cocaine an okay in your house? So what is it? It's moderation in the good things and total abstinence in the bad things. Yes, and sometimes we think, wait a minute. No, I don't have moderation in that. We just plumb don't do that around here. And so the next one is what about music? Do we have to have moderation in music? Is there some music that's not appropriate to that young fella's ears? Is there some things that's not appropriate to mom's ears? Yeah. I mean, I don't listen to words in music usually. I like the music. I like to sing, but I don't pay attention to words usually. I listen to music. I was a trumpet player, and so I get into more of the music. But when you stop and listen, there's some terrible, awful stuff that they talk about in music. Or what it does to your body. It sometimes is not that healthy. What about TV? Now, can TV be good? Anybody ever watched Amazing Discoveries? Is that a good thing? Absolutely. Or how about watching some whales on the Discovery Channel? Sure. So again, we have to have moderation in the good stuff. What about gaming? My kids thought I was terrible awful. I didn't allow any gaming on our computers when the kids were growing up because I saw that gaming can be addictive. And I believe in work. And I saw that the kids could just get so engrossed in gaming that it was addictive. And so when they grew up, became adults, what they do is what they do. But it didn't happen in my house because I just don't like the addictiveness of it. I was flying out to California one time from Knoxville. I got on a plane in Atlanta, flying out west, and there was a young fellow, he was in his 40s. He was on his little Mac computer. I was on the aisle seat, and he was sitting beside me, one row up on the aisle seat, and he looked like a little boy your age, jumping up and down, playing on his computer, cutting throats, blowing things up, stabbing people. And he did that all the way from Atlanta to California, that whole flight. And as we then get with even children or adults, do sometimes people have a problem with reality? But they did it when we were kids. Remember, who's the guy, Beep Beep? Who's the guy? Roadrunner. Remember they drop things on, they kill them, and then they came back alive again? So even in our generation, we had things that were not totally realistic. But these games are so realistic looking today. Roadrunner didn't look like a person, but these games look like people, and they're blowing them up, and they're killing them, and we see sometimes crimes based on these gamers who have a problem with reality and what's a game. What is social media? Whoa. I think it went crazy. I'll let you fix that while I'm doing this. So what about social media? Is social media a problem? Can be, absolutely. I use social media. I train a lot on social media. But Scott Redsmith, have y'all had Scott come here? Scott would be, y'all know Scott Redsmith? Do y'all know Scott? He would be a great person to have. He's in Chattanooga, so he's not a long ways away. Scott has some tremendous information on media addictions, media on the mind, media on the brain. And Scott has found in his research that media is the #1 addiction in America today. And we look at what does media do? Did you see what Sally's husband got her for her birthday? Did you see where Judy's husband took her for their vacation? See that new dress that Carmen got? Some of it's not even true. But it's not just in adults, it's in children. And it's crazy what social media is doing to young folks' minds and adults' minds and how much time people spend on social media. As we grow and develop, very specific chemical reactions activate and deactivate parts of our genome at strategic times and in specific locations, essentially turning our genes on and off. Epigenetics is a study of these processes and the factors that influence them. We could speak all weekend on this topic. And for years we thought there was something called genetically predisposed. Well, there is something called genetically predisposed, but genetically predisposed, I believe, is, if not one of the most misdiagnosed diagnoses. I was told I was genetically predisposed for hypercholesterolemia. My cholesterol was 288. Well, guess what? When I quit eating anything with a mama, my cholesterol went to 104. But I was told because my daddy had high cholesterol, my granddaddy had high cholesterol, and because I had it then, it was genetically predisposed. No, I was East Tennessee predisposed. And I was eating what my East Tennessee father ate, and he was eating what his East Tennessee father ate, and he was eating what his East Tennessee father ate. That Southern diet that has a lot of cholesterol in it. And so, it's not as bad today, but I have had doctors, medical doctors, argue with me till the cows come home that if your granddaddy smokes and he gets lung cancer, and your daddy smokes and he gets lung cancer, and you smoke and you get lung cancer, that is genetically predisposed. And I'll have a young boy his age that will say, no, mister, that's because you smoke. And so as we learn in epigenetics, and MIT's doing some great research there, Harvard's doing some great research there, a number of universities are researching there, and they're finding that through epigenetics, we can change our genes. And you know what they're finding that will change our genes? As I listen to these researchers talk, these items right here. Now, they don't talk about this last one because they're state universities, but they talk about the others. These 8 laws are foundations to how our bodies run. It's just physiology. That's just how it works. If you put diesel in a gas burner, that is physiology. It's not going to run right. If you never change the oil in your car, or if you put K-Rose syrup in it, it's not going to run right. It's just physiology. So I won't spend time on the genetics today. That's a whole lot that we can look at. It is a law of the mind that it gradually adapts itself to the subjects upon which it is trained to dwell. That's like the law of gravity. So as we look at what we think about, can it affect our brain? Do you know anybody that just plays with stuff that's happened before? They actually like playing with stuff that happened before? Do you know what I'm talking about? Let's say someone did something to you years ago, and people just think about it and think about it and think about it. We need to be putting our minds on positive things, not on negative things. Not to be Pollyanna. Y'all know what Pollyanna is. But be real, but let's not allow our brains to just be a pessimist. Be positive. Is that car going to run too good with that air filter? Not at all. Adequate oxygen. Effects of pollution on the brain. Children's psychological and motor development is negatively affected with air pollution. Negatively impacts brain white matter, which affects nerve conduction speed, brain inflammation. Negatively affects executive functions such as planning and memory. Anybody ever flown into LA? It's like smog flying into. The only time I've ever flown into LA that didn't have that was during the virus. Literally, I flew into to LA during COVID, and I could see. I've never seen that before. Them poor people out there. Effects of air pollution on the brain, cognitive impairment, increased behavioral problems, crime rates increase. And that's just all those research locations from NIH. Adequate oxygen, fresh air has many health benefits. Improves brain's ability to function. And y'all are blessed. What do you have here that is phenomenal air-wise? The ocean. Yes. It's amazing what the ocean does for it's called negative ions. And it's amazing what it does as that water is turning as the waves come in. And you actually have more of that than over on the Gulf. Yeah. So that's huge to go out there and just breathe that air from the waves. Gives clarity to the mind, improves concentration. Can you see why we need to go outside and have fresh air? Why we need fresh air makeup even in the house, open them windows and not leave with the windows all the time closed. Boosts learning abilities, gives a sense of happiness and well-being by altering brain levels of serotonin. We talked about serotonin last night. Promotes quality sleep. Kills bacteria and viruses in the air. And there's another problem with breathing. There are people who breathe like a chihuahua. You know people like that? They don't have good diaphragmatic breathing. Remember your child when it was a baby, an infant, and you lay it down on its back and the stomach would go up and down. That's diaphragmatic breathing. Who's taking voice? Anybody taking voice? Did they teach you diaphragmatic breathing? Absolutely. When I went to Academy, my freshman year, I joined the choir, the touring choir, and Stuart Crook, who was our choir director, laid us down on the floor in front of everybody, stuck a songbook on our stomach, and said, you learn to breathe where that songbook goes up and down. And we went back to the dorm and learned to breathe. Whoever's played a wind instrument. Anybody play a wind instrument? What'd you play? Did you play a wind instrument? What'd you play? Clarinet. Okay. Did you have to have good diaphragmatic breathing? Absolutely. I played the trumpet. If you want to hit a good high C, you better have diaphragmatic breathing. And if we breathe like a chihuahua, we don't even diaphragmatic breathing, we don't have full 100% transfer. Y'all know that in healthcare. So if you don't have good diaphragmatic breathing, you're not having good oxygen exchange and getting rid of the toxins that the lungs are doing its job for. Okay, rest. A sleepy person's brain works harder and accomplishes less. A single night of poor sleep is linked to less efficient filtering, meaning one's brain has issues picking out important or relative nuggets of information from all the insignificant junk one's senses absorb. Mayo Clinic finds the following on sleep and brain function. Getting at least 7 hours of quality rest each night is essential for optimal health. The Breezel-Belloc study, which is a study of 6,900 people in Alameda County, California, found that if you have less than 8 hours of sleep, you die quicker. If you have more than 9 hours of sleep, you die quicker. That sweet spot is in that 8 hours. Sleep provides the foundation for all daily habits and decisions. Now, here's the problem people think. If you don't get adequate sleep, if you're tired today and you didn't get adequate sleep last night, people say, well, I'll get me some sleep tonight and that'll help me. Well, do you charge this tonight so you'll use it today? Do you charge it tonight so will you use it today? Now, let me ask you a question. At what time does the day start? Ooh, sunset. Where'd you learn that? Genesis 1. It's not midnight. It's not sunrise. Okay, so if it is sunset, what is the first major event here that we do? We sleep. We rest. Just like last night, I had to charge my phone. So at 4:58 this morning, when my phone went off, said I had a house fire, it was charged up and I could hear what them guys were doing, make sure they were okay. And you can't charge it tonight for it to be there today. Our bodies, we have to have sleep tonight, not for today, but for tomorrow. Sleep deprivation can negatively affect mood and temperament, as well as one's ability to focus on daily tasks. Lack of sleep influences what and how much one eats. Did you know that if you have sleep deprivation, you're prone to gain weight? For several reasons. One of the reasons, you're up longer so you can see the pizza commercials. They say, pizza sure tastes good right now. And you get up and go to the refrigerator and get you something to eat. Sleep allows time for the mind and body to recover from the day's work. During the rapid eye movement, REM stage of sleep, the brain sorts the important information from the unimportant and files long-term memory. If this stage of sleep cycle is shortchanged, mental focus and acuity can decrease. And the problem is, guys, if you're waking up 5, 6, 7 times to go to the bathroom at night, are you getting REM sleep? No, you're not getting REM sleep. Or ladies, if you wake up in the middle of the night and you're worrying about little Susie or little Bobby, and then you go back to sleep, and you wake up again, you worry about Ricky. And you know what it's like, ladies. You're worrying about the kids, you're worrying about the grandkids. If you're not getting that REM sleep, so we have non-REM, and then we go into REM sleep. And what happens if you wake up, it starts over again. Sleep deprivation has the propensity to make one feel cranky and short-tempered. Do you believe that? Y'all have experienced that. Sleeping less than 7 hours a night is associated with weight gain, diabetes, high blood pressure, depression, body aches, pains, reduced immune function, and impaired performance at work. And guess what happened June or July of 2022? The American Heart Association put sleeping less than 7 hours a night, even, what's the word I'm looking for? Infrequently can increase your risk of heart disease. Not frequently, but infrequently. So unless you get sleep every night at least 7 hours of sleep, you increase your risk of heart disease. Seldom less than will increase your risk of heart disease. It actually can increase hypertension and a number of other issues, cardiovascularly wise. When the body and mind are well rested, one is able to respond to life with greater perspective and understanding. Sleep can help boost one's motivation and willpower, making it easier to fend off temptations. Do you hear that? I'm reading from science literature here, and they're talking about temptation. Isn't that interesting? So, I look at 3 functions of sleep. I look at the number of hours. Are you getting that 8 to 9 hours sleep? Number 2, who knows what the lymphatic system is? Anybody know what the lymphatic system is? It's a sewer system. Well, when we went to school and you looked at a chart of a person and you looked at the lymphatic system, the brain was white. It did not have a lymphatic system in the brain. The rest of the body, but not the brain. But in 2013, scientists found that the brain does have a lymphatic system. It's called the glymphatic system. And researchers say it kicks on about 9 o'clock at night. And from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, the brain does a deep cleaning. From 10 o'clock to midnight, it does a thorough cleaning and flushing. If you're not asleep, you didn't flush the toilet. How many folks don't get to bed till 1, 2 o'clock? You're not getting that deep cleaning of the brain. You're missing out. The other thing about sleep is the hours before midnight are worth twice the hours of sleep after midnight. Who's ever heard of a guy called Neil Nedley? Neil will tell you that when he went to undergrad and took pre-med, he would go to sleep at 9 o'clock and took advantage of those 3 hours before, which were like 6 hours. When he went to Loma Linda and took med, he took those hours, he went to sleep at 9 o'clock to get the benefit of those hours before midnight. So as we look at sleep, and then the other component of sleep, are you getting REM sleep? Are you waking up multiple times in the night and getting an interruption and not getting the REM sleep? Because REM sleep is so important for us. Can anybody tell me where this setting is? What's the venue? What's it look like? Where do you think that is? Pardon?
Outward Bounds Camping Adventure.
Okay, anyone else? Here's a hint. Every Florida school and administrative building will be required to display "In God We Trust," according to a bill passed by the Florida House on Wednesday. This was in 2018. The bill states the phrase must be displayed in a conspicuous place. When I show this to places like New York City, Portland, Oregon, Sweden, Maine, they cannot believe this. No way. When I go into the school systems, Prior to Tennessee doing this, I would have to, when I teach this in the school system, I'd have to tell the kids, take out your money, and what's every piece of money say on it? I couldn't say it. Legally, I could not say that phrase in the school system, but the kids could read it themselves. And I could talk about how important what the money says for us physiologically. I can today. It's legal. And when Tennessee K through 12 public students begin classes next month, this was in 18 also, the national motto, "In God We Trust," will be required to be posted somewhere in their schools. In the school, I go to various schools, but there's one school I go to every month. And when I go in there and you walk in the door of the principal's office to the office, which in the back of the office is the principal's office, when you open that door, boom, right in front of you is a big sign that says, "In God We Trust." If you go in the office for any reason, whether it's to get in trouble or whatever, there it is right there, "In God We Trust." And so now I can say it. It's legal. Arkansas schools to display "In God We Trust." The new law in South Dakota now requires all public schools across the state to feature the "In God We Trust" motto on display. Kentucky is the latest in a line of states requiring "In God We Trust" motto in public schools. We've got it on our money. We've got it on our police cars. Let me tell you what, tell folks in New York City we have it on our police cars. Or when I was in Maine several months ago, they could not believe that we put it on our police cars. That's one of my fire trucks. "In God We Trust." I've got it on our fire trucks. Trust in the Lord with all thy heart and lean unto what? Oh, what's it say? And lean not unto thine own understanding. That's not what they taught me in school. That is not what they taught me in school. That is not what they taught me in corporate America. Lean on your own understanding. You can do it. No, you can't do near a thing. It is God that does it. And leaning on Him is how we are able to accomplish. Prayer will give the sick an abiding confidence. And many times, if their cases are borne to the great physician in humble trust, it will do more for them than all the drugs that can be administered. Wow. I tell people when they ask me what they should do, I tell them to ask the medical director. And they go, "That's why I'm coming to you. I don't trust the medical folks." I said, "No, the medical director, the top doctor." And who's the top doctor? God. God is the medical director. "Walt, should I keep taking this medication?" "I don't know." "Walt, should I take chemotherapy?" "I don't know." Ask God. If God says take chemotherapy, then you better do it. If God says don't, but how do you know? Do you pray? Do you ask God what car to buy? Do you ask God, what house to buy? Do you ask God other big questions in your life? Do you ever feel like, that just ain't right? I just don't feel right with that. I'm impressed that I shouldn't do that. Do you ever get that impression after praying? How many of y'all know what a Farmall Super M TA is? You do? Okay. So a Farmall is one of them old red tractors. And I've been wanting to buy a Farmall for years. And to take my grandkids and the family and the neighbor kids out on hay rides. It's better than the neighbor kids going in and playing with the phone all the time. So a couple years ago, I found one. And a guy came and told me, he says, "Walt, I found you a Farmall." So I called them. They sent me pictures. It had just been restored. Beautiful. It was just new paint job. The engine sounded great. New tires on it. We call them tars. And I said, "How much do you want?" The guy goes, "Give me this much for it." That's what he paid in the tires. I said, "Why you want to sell it?" He said, "I got two of them. I got an M and a Super M. My wife said get rid of the Super M, so I figured I better get it out of here quick." I said, "Okay, let me pray." And so I prayed throughout a whole week. I kept praying a whole week because the answer every time was no. But God, this is a good tractor. It's a good deal. I mean, all I'm doing is I'm buying a set of tires and I'm getting a free tractor with it. No. After a week, I called the man back. I said, sir, I have no idea why, but God said no. Unfortunately, I live in Tennessee, which is in the Bible Belt. And this guy goes, sir, I understand. See, he prays too. And I didn't buy the tractor. I don't know why I didn't buy the tractor. Other than, I don't know what. That's something I want to ask God when I get to heaven. Why did you not want me to get that Super MTA? That was a good deal. I think God will let us answer those kind of questions. Do you? I think He will. Does God care about us on those little things? If He'll take care of the sparrow. I have people come to me with cancer and I say, can we pray about this? Oh, no, we can't pray. Why can't we pray? God's too busy for that. He doesn't have time for my little problems. Ma'am, you got cancer. That's serious. We need to ask God about this. We can ask God. And God is our physician. And if you have health problems, ask Him what to do. That's the best one to ask. And said, if thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and will do that which is right in His sight, and will give ear to His commandments, and keep all His statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. Is that not a promise? I believe these can fall within statutes. Do you? I believe it can. And this is the last slide I'll talk about here, and then we'll go on. But I think this is very important. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. We read that a few moments ago. But I think that is so important. And we have to retrain our training. We have to undo the learning that we got in school. And we have to trust in God. And I think that's a big problem. Sometimes we can get so much education that we're taught we have to prove something. Well, how much research was done on it? Oh, that's just anecdotal. You can't trust that. Not buying that Super MTA, that's just anecdotal. There's no double-blind study on that. Or let's say you have something for cancer. I am not going to recommend double-blind studies on someone that has cancer and give them a placebo. That person's dying. And so I believe, yes, I like research. Mary Lou will tell you, I read research all the time, and I learn from it. But bottom line, this is where we go to. So I encourage you, as you look at looking at health issues, look at nutrition, look at exercise, look at water, look at what? Sunshine, and y'all have got that here. Temperance, making the right decisions. What's the next one? Pure air. Don't breathe like a chihuahua. What's the next one? Rest. And then what's the last one? Trust in God. Trust in divine power. So very important. Okay, let's go to the next item on how do we develop a healthy lifestyle system. And so what I'd like to look at today is, yes, we can look at it on chronic diseases such as cardiovascular disease, diabetes, lupus, whatever you're dealing with. But what about you hurt your back? You have arthritis. What can we do? Oh, can I share something with y'all? Were one of y'all from, I was talking to somebody yesterday. Was it one of y'all that was from Corpus? Was somebody from Corpus Christi here? Oh, you, that's right, yes. So I told you I enjoyed going to Beeville? Okay. Beeville's just a little old church. It's a one-urinal church. And this is what is on the wall at that urinal. Now, this only happens in Texas. Because Texas have men. This is on the wall. I took a picture of it. The greatest want of the world is the want of godly men. Men who will not be bought or sold. Men who in their innermost souls are true and honest. Men who do not fear to call sin by its right name. Men whose conscience is as true to the duty as the needle to the pole. Men who will stand for the right though the heavens fall. Now, is that something you'd hear in Texas? Yes, men be men in Texas. And I think men need to be men everywhere and stand up and do what God created us to do. It was just on here. I shared it, you know, for somebody and just happened to be there. On your package, you have this here. If you want to find us, you can use your telephone and you can use that QR code, and it will give you our phone number, our address, our YouTube, our website, our Facebook, our TikTok, all that stuff. That we do a lot of teaching and education, and you'll find that there. We talked a little bit about mission. What is our mission last night? Let's see here. Let me go. You know what? I gave you the wrong one. Let me give you a different file. I'll be right back, y'all. Let's take 5 minutes real quick and be right back. Okay, y'all ready? I apologize there. Maybe it just was meant for y'all to see that one slide was on that other program. It was renamed the name of this program. I don't know what happened. But anyway, so let's, if you can go to full screen. So how to develop an effective lifestyle plan. As we look at developing plans, you want to look at, you want to do it effectively. And there's so many plans out there that you see on YouTube and TikTok and what all. So many of them are just wanting to sell you a product. And then they don't, you got to take that product forever. And I'll have people who come in and they'll say, I have, let's say, they've got diabetes. And so they want bergamot. They want something that will lower their blood sugar, stabilize their blood sugar, Genema sylvestris, fenugreek, cedarberry, blueberry leaf, peach tree, basil, holy basil. There's just a number of herbs that will stabilize blood sugar. But I don't want to stabilize their blood sugar. We did that with drugs. I want to see it reverse. And so that's what our goal is here, is to look this afternoon at how you can reverse diseases effectively. Some you can, some you can't. And the bottom line is understanding the physiology. An example, type 2 diabetes, as we said last night, it's easier to reverse type 2 diabetes than it is toenail fungus. You can reverse type 2 diabetes faster, many times, than you can reversing toenail fungus. Type 1, that's a whole different animal. It's not even the same disease. Diabetes. If they tell us today, if they knew what they knew, they wouldn't have called them diabetes. They call them two separate names. But type 1 diabetes is something we just haven't really understood yet. I believe if we'll understand the physiology that we can do something about it. Yes, you can do something in the honeymoon period that can be effective. And yes, sometimes even after the honeymoon period, but for the most part, no. And so we have to manage it more effectively, but we haven't totally figured out how to totally reverse it. So let's take a look. Here are items out there that folks have. Any of these guys yours? Or somebody you know? 11 causeless diseases in the United States. AIDS, 24 billion. High lipids, 34.5 billion. Kidney disease, 38.1 billion. Mental disorders, 57.5 billion. Arthritis, 74.4 billion. Do you see why we don't want to get rid of them? COPD and asthma, as I mentioned last night, COPD, asthma is no longer within it. That's why it's still there, because a lot of the research for years had it inside COPD, so we still link it to look at trending. 79.6 billion. Obesity, 147 billion. Cancer, 157 billion. Dementia, 159 billion. Diabetes, 176 billion. And look at this guy right here, which is the #1 killer in America, heart disease, 193 billion. If you look at those, you're over $1 trillion a year. Why would you want to fix it? My daddy told me a story when I was a little boy on the farm. He said there's this guy who worked for the state of Tennessee, and his job was to go out and get rid of beaver dams. And so he'd kind of tear them about a little bit and not plumb get rid of them, but just kind of make it where water would start flowing again. And years ago, I don't know if it was that way where y'all grew up, but there's a little old general store. And all the men would kind of huddle around there and talk and whatever. Y'all remember that if you're in the country. And one day, Dad said they asked this man, why don't you just go take a stick of dynamite and blow them beaver dams up? He said, I wouldn't have a job. And that's what many times we see in conventional health care. And I worked in that for 20 years. Is why are you going to do away with something that puts bread and butter on the table? That pays your medical bills. That your medical school bill. There are many issues there. 10 deadliest diseases. And there's heart disease again. Top 2 root causes, appetite and sedentariness. Do you know anybody who's sedentary? Don't move? They just kind of sit and don't do much? Put them 2 together and you have health problems. You've got to eat good fuel and you've got to get up and move. Perfect health is perfect circulation. That's right. And what causes circulation? Improves circulation? Get up and move. That's right. Prescription, get up and change one's lifestyle. Now, show me who works in healthcare or has worked in healthcare. Okay, y'all know MAPI. Y'all remember MAPI? Or API. Y'all knew API probably. State of North Carolina, we changed it to MAPI. Assess, plan, implement, evaluate. Well, in North Carolina, we put an M on there because we were having problems with people not having the same mission as us in administration. And so you got to kind of cue them into the same box. And so whether it was right or wrong. And so we got to have a mission. And that's a good thing anyway. You want to assess, plan, implement, and evaluate. Then, so you assess the problem. What's going on? Then you make a plan. How are you going to treat this problem? Then you're going to implement that plan that you just made. And then you're going to evaluate that plan. Is it working? Watch your trending. Watch your numbers. I'm a big believer in numbers. So let's say you start a lifestyle program and your blood sugar's not doing what it's supposed to do. Then what do? Figure out something else. Try something different. It's not a cookie cutter. Everybody's different. You've got to try different things for people. One thing fits everybody. And so you've got to try what works for you. And so you evaluate, is it working or not? If it's not working, then you go back up. What's your mission? Reassess. What worked? Well, let's try something else. Or what didn't work? Try something else. Make a new plan, re-implement, and then you evaluate. What do they call this at work? Continuous Quality Improvement. CQI, TQM. Y'all remember those acronyms. So what's your mission? We read this last night. Whether for you eat or drink or whatever you do all to the glory of God. Now, why is that? Let's take a look. 1 Corinthians 6, 19 and 20 will explain why this is important. What? Know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost, which is in you, which ye have of God, and what? This is my body. I can do whatever I want to. I can drink, I can smoke, I can do drugs. It ain't never been your business. Is it our body to do whatever we want to with it? No, it's not. And so who does it belong to? We are just, that's right, we're caretakers. We're just caretaking it for Him. And so we can't treat someone else. Right now, I'm renting a car. Now, can I just do whatever I want to that car? No. For you're bought with a price, therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are whose? God's. Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you? We come back to chapter 3, and this is serious, y'all. If any man defiles the temple of God, our bodies, what does it say? Him shall God, for the temple of God is holy, which temple ye are. And how does God allow the body to get destroyed? Diseases. It's just the consequences. It's cause and effect. The brain is the organ and instrument of the mind and controls the whole body. We read this last night. In order for the other parts of the system to be healthy, the brain must be healthy. In order for the brain to be healthy, the blood must be pure. And if by correct habits of eating and drinking, the blood is kept pure, the brain will be properly nourished. When the brain's properly nourished, the brain runs better. When the brain runs better, the body runs better. So let's do it. Y'all, I think they printed this off for y'all. And so let's go through this together. Let's do an assessment. This is what I do when I sit down and talk with people. And we do an in-depth look. How old are you? What's your occupation? Why do I want to know what your occupation is? Pardon? Sedentary? Stress? Yes, chemical exposure. Are you a farmer? Are you working in the orange groves and spraying stuff all day long on you? Or when they are spraying? Absolutely. Are they sedentary? What's their stress? I was in Rwanda, and this guy, it's amazing the people who come and ask for help. And this guy, I asked him, what do you do? He says, I work in law enforcement. And just the way he held himself, I go, this guy, he's probably maybe the chief of Kigali. Later I found he was over law enforcement for the whole country of Rwanda. And what do you think his big issue was? Stress. What happens? The number one cause of high blood pressure is stress. Stress raises cortisol, stress lowers potassium, and boom, you have hypertension. What's their work schedule? What is worse than working third shift? Swing shift. It's right, swing shift. Your body's not used to it. It's bang, bang, back and forth. Third shift is not at all good for us. I used to work third shift when I went to school. Swing shift is even worse than that. What's your health concerns? What concerns do you have? Do you have pain? Do you have arthritis? Do you have lupus? Do you have whatever those are? You want to write those down. And these poor women out of New York City. Who's from New York City? Anybody? I know the preacher this morning was. And I'd ask these ladies, how many bowel movements do you have? They did not want to tell me how many bowel movements. And then I asked them, what is the consistency of your bowel movements? Oh my. Is our bowels function important? Yes. I had this poor girl come one day. She's in her 30s, probably late 30s. She looked like a corporate executive to some CEO of some corporation. Dressed very nice, She comes in and she says, can you help me? I said, what concern do you have? She says, well, I need something to have more bowel movements. Okay. How often do you have bowel movements? Once every 3 weeks. And I looked at her abdominal area, and it's not, it's flat as could be. I'm thinking, where is that stuff hanging out? 3 weeks. And she said, I said, so is that by normal? She said, no, I have to take something in 3 weeks to make it go. And I said, is it painful? She said, yes, it gets painful. So I started listing off the causes of problems with peristalsis. I said, how much water you drank? How much fiber do you eat? How much exercise do you get? Do you eat at the same time every day? Do you ignore the urge? See, when you ignore the urge because you're so busy, Kellogg found that you teach your brain to ignore the urge because it must not be important. So your brain just stops listening to it. And so you have to retrain the brain to every time you do have the urge, yep, that's important, got to go. And the more you do that, the more it starts working like it's supposed to. So this lady would not do but one thing. She says, she doesn't do water. She says, I gave her all those items that she could do. She says, okay, give me something for fiber. That's the only thing she was willing to do. So I gave her some fiber. She came back several weeks later, and I said, how's it going? She says, that does not work. I said, did you go? Yes. So what's the problem? How often did you go? 3 times a day. And I said, well, how many meals do you eat a day? 3. Perfect. You're doing exactly what the body's supposed to do. I said, what's the problem? She says, I don't have time for 3 times a day. So you just do the math, y'all. He could do the math. So let's figure the time that you spend. And you do it just times once every 3 weeks. Set that number over here. And then take that 21 days times 3, 21 times 3, times that amount. That's a lot of wasted time to this lady. She says, it's got to be something else. I can't go off that often. I said, ma'am, that's the proper amount. I can't help you anything else. And she left. I never saw her again. So you want to look at what's the number, what's the consistency of bowel movements. At 2 to 3, every 3 days I see that a lot. 2, 3, 4, 5 days. And I see 1 week. I see 2 weeks. I met a lady one time, 1 month. 1 month. She had not had a bowel movement. I don't see how she lived. I mean, get an impaction. You can die from impactions. And then you want to look at pain. So I'd get people to come in with pain. This is when I worked at the center. And they'd spend 3 weeks with us. And when they left, they would say, this program doesn't work. I still have pain. Oh, I knew they were doing better. So there's got to be something I can do on this. So what if I measure it? So when they came in, I looked at where do you have pain? On every location, what is your pain 0 to 10? And I even got a barometer out and I measured range of motion. How much range did they have of the areas that they had pain, like you do in physical therapy? And so as we went through the program, how's it doing? Are you less pain? Oh, I'm probably instead of an 8, I'm a 7. Good. And as we kept going, a 6. They still have pain? Yeah, they still have pain. They had a 5. Okay, a 4, a 3, a 2 by the time they left. Now, did they still have pain when they left? They did. Was it better? Do you see why measuring is important? Because they still left with pain, but it was better than when they came in. And so you've got to measure the pain. You've got to measure the range of motion. Is it better range of motion? Because it took them a while to get to where they are now. In 3 weeks, many times isn't enough, but we see improvement. So measure, do trending. I like trending. Stress, 0 to 10. And one of the problems with stress, I have a number of people who come in with their spouse. And I look at their spouse and say, what's your stress level? Because she may say, I have no stress. And then I look over at the husband. Or I look at the wife and I say, sometimes our spouses know us a little bit better than us, or sometimes we just plow through, That's the way men are, right? We're not supposed to complain. Do it. But do our wives know we're stressed? Just ask Mary Lou. She knows when I'm stressed. So ask the spouse. How about depression? Depression's a big issue out there. Talked about that last night. And ladies, yes, men look at their hormones, but especially ladies. If you have ladies come in and they are having problems with depression, anxiety, stress, you better check the hormones. Their hormones could be messed up, and their hormones could be the issue or that root cause. Take care of those hormones. It's huge. Then you want to look at their lifestyle. What do you eat for breakfast? When do you eat? What do you normally eat? Again, y'all know I'm a country boy and dinner's a noon meal. When do you eat it? What time? What do you normally eat? See, I used to say, how many meals do you eat? I just don't eat that much. I just eat just 1 meal a day. But it's all day long. And they were like cows, grazing all day long. And they just thought, I don't eat much. I don't really sit down for a meal. Well, they didn't sit down for a meal, but they snacked all day long. So you want to find that out. You can't fix it unless you ask them and figure it out. So dinner, that's the noon meal. If you come to my neck of the woods and someone asks you out for dinner, don't come at nighttime. You will miss it. They're going to say, well, we had that meal, 5 hours ago. When do you eat it? What time? What do you normally eat? Supper. When do you eat it? What do you normally eat? Do you eat between meals? If you eat between meals, what do you eat? Are there any are there any, I'm sorry, I didn't read right. Are there any foods that you're allergic to? Are there any foods that you're allergic to? And some people know that, and some people don't know that. Now, I would have people come in, and they'd say, when I eat bread, I just don't feel right. And so I'd go to my doctor, and the doctor would test me for gluten intolerance, and the test would show up negative. And then around 2 years later, they come in and say, Walt, it's now showing positive. Well, so I mentioned it to a friend of mine. He's a neurologist, and we were talking one day. I said, Arvo, it's almost like the test isn't strong enough. It's just, you got to be really bad off sick before it picks you up. And he said, well, actually the VA administration, the VA hospitals is the one that figured that out, is that the gluten test that your doctor gives you is not sensitive enough to pick up when you start having that early onset of symptoms. And you have to get sick enough that finally the test picks you up, and that can be 2 years later. What else are people allergic to? Nuts? Dairy, seafood, berries. Pardon?
Roundup, anything sprayed.
Oh yeah, anything sprayed with Roundup. That just doesn't make sense, does it? We call that at home, it just doesn't make horse sense. Can you imagine tomorrow going picking a mess of green beans and telling, is this your husband? And telling him, honey, I'm going to go pick me a mess of green beans tomorrow. Can you go spray it with Roundup today? And then tomorrow you go pick it and feed it to the family? There's no way you're going to do that. But we do that with our corn. We do that with our wheat. We do it with our soybeans. We're now doing it with our alfalfa. I went to my neighbor one time, and I didn't even know what Roundup Ready was. This was 24 years ago. So I go to my neighbor, and he grows soybeans. And I said, could I bring you a 5-gallon bucket and buy some soybeans off of you? Mary Lou likes cooking soybeans. He goes, no, I ain't going to sell it to you. And I said, why don't you sell it to me? He says, you know what Roundup Ready is? I said, no. He says, do you know what Roundup is? I said, yes, that stuff you spray weeds with. He goes, yeah. So he explained to me what Roundup Ready was. We didn't have that on the farm when I lived on the farm. And he says, that's poison. I'm not going to sell it to you. You're my neighbor. I said, who do you sell your soybeans to? He said, beef farmers. I said, well, what do they do with it? Their cows eat it. Well, what happens with the cows? People eat it. Well, I knew what happened with cows because I grew up on a beef cattle farm. We had dairy cattle, then we went beef cattle. It was actually in Quincy, Florida, that I gave up eating meat at the stockyard. So the cows are eating Roundup food, and then people are eating the cows. It just doesn't make sense. When I go out to Minnesota, and I go at a certain time of the year when they're spraying or where they've just sprayed and the wheat is plumb dead. And then they harvest it and we eat that Roundup wheat. So you're right. What else are people allergic to?
Dairy.
Pardon?
Dairy.
Dairy. It's a big one. Dairy is a big one. Yeah, my doctor told me, Mary Lou, how long has it been now? Probably 25, 26 years ago, something like that, 26 years ago. He said, you're going to die. He said, I've done everything I can do for you. You're going to die. Well, when your doctor tells you you're going to die, you go somewhere else. That doctor, he's not helping you. And so I'd had dinner with a cardiologist 5 years before who had some issues. And he had told me that he had gone to a doctor that had helped him out a lot, went to Loma Linda, but did natural. So I went to that doctor. And he put me on a program. 6 months later, I was perfectly fine. 6 months. And here this other doctor said, I was so bad off I was dying. I was going to die. And this other doctor said, I think you're allergic to dairy. I quit dairy, and I'm here now. It's amazing. So yes, dairy is a big issue. Anything else people allergic to, food-wise? Pardon? Strawberries? Okay. So there's different food allergies people either know of or they don't know of. What's a problem with peanuts that people don't think of? Mold. Peanuts are very prone to mold. Exercise. You don't ask somebody, do you exercise? I used to have nurses tell me, oh yeah, I push the med cart. They thought that was exercise, pushing the med cart. There's different kinds. There's different types. There's cardiovascular, and there is resistant exercise. We need both, but cardiovascular is huge. And we talked last night about Dr. Walter Kempner at Duke University. Interesting fella. He was German. His parents kicked him out of Germany. Can you imagine your parents kicking you out of your own country? And his parents kicked him out of his own country. And they said, leave now. He knew something was going on. He thought it'd blow over. He was a medical doctor. He had a PhD, I believe it was biochemistry, I'm pretty sure. And he went to Duke University. He was Jewish. Good thing he left. It's a good thing he left Germany. He was Jewish. He lived. But Kempner studied little humans and big humans. And I think we talked about this last night, but just to cover it again for those that weren't here. He found that little humans exercise. They had recess in the morning, recess after dinner, recess in the afternoon. They went home and played and did chores. And he started applying that same to big humans, to adults, exercising 4 times a day. And he said he found the outcome indicators were huge, huge. Looking at exercising an adult 4 times a day instead of just once a day or just 3 times a week. And I have found that to be very, very true. Start out with just 5 minutes, 4 times a day. 3 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever you can do. People might be in a wheelchair. Walt, I can't exercise. Can they exercise? Can they clap their hands? Try this, y'all. Try this. Rub your ears. Now, rub them real good and hard. Now, good and hard. Now, good and hard. Can you feel that? The heat? That's called microcirculation. Now, we're in the church, and I ain't going to clap. But if you clapped your hands and then stopped, then clap your hands again and stopped, you could feel the tingling in your hands. That's microcirculation. Can that person who's in a wheelchair do that? Could you take a newspaper and hit your legs? Hit yourself? Yeah. It increases circulation. You can move your legs. I've got a guy who... Did anybody watch the program I did January, February? Did you watch it January, February? I do it. I try to do it every year. Sometimes I'll do it for 3 months. This year I think I just did it January. I don't remember. How long did I do it this year? Just January? Did I do it in February? January, okay. So I'm at Walmart. I had to go take something back. No, I was at Lowe's. I take it back. I was at Lowe's. And this guy, I go out to my vehicle. And this guy's getting in his vehicle and he gets back out and he says, "Are you Walt Cross?" You know, and you wonder, should I say yes or no? You know what I'm saying? I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "You've never met me before, but I'm that guy. My wife sent you a message saying that I did your program." He said, "I've lost 40 pounds. 40 pounds in a month. In a month." He's a tractor-trailer driver. And I remember her telling me, I said, "So you're a long-haul driver?" He goes, "No." I said, "But she said you did your exercises in the, what's it called, where you sleep in the back, the bunk? What's it called?" Cabin. Oh, the cabin, okay. I said, "She said you were exercising in the cabin." He says, "Yes." He said, but he says, "I do short runs in town, in the local area." He says, "What I deliver, you have to use equipment to take it out. So I just back up to the dock, wait for him to get me." He said, "Used to, I just get out and talk to him, or I just sit there and eat." He says, "Now I get in the back, in the cabin, and I just lay down and do all kinds of leg exercises." Can y'all do that? Yeah. Exercise is huge. What's the time and the duration? Water. How much do you drink each day? Don't ask a person if they drink enough water. They'll say, oh yeah, I drink a lot of water. How much you drink? I drink a cup a day. Well, that's not enough. And we talked last night about youngins like this. University of California. Davis says that a 5-year-old needs how much? Who was listening last night? A half a gallon, 64 ounces, up to 128 pounds. So a 5-year-old up to 128 pounds is a half a gallon to sit on the couch. That's not to be active. That's not to be out in the Florida sun. And so you need more. Over 128 pounds is body weight divided by 2. That many ounces to sit on the couch. But if you're active, you need to do more. And we talked last night about taking sips of water 3 to 4 times every half hour. Very important. Do you drink soft drinks? If so, how often and how much? I had a guy come in one time and he's got diabetes. And I got to this question and I said, do you drink? I'm trying to think. I think it was Mountain Dew was his choice. And he says, yes. I said, how much do you do? And he said, 3 liters a day. 3 liters a day. I said, well, it's difficult to, you got to work with people on what they can do. And so if they'll keep coming in and working with you, so I asked him, I said, you reckon you could cut it back to just 2 liters a day? Let's start off. If I had said, you got to plumb stop it, he would have never come back again. Never. I have people that say, I don't do water. Well, can you drink just 1 of these a day? I don't know. Can you drink a half of them a day? I'll try. Let me see what I can do with that. But if I told them how much they had to drink, no way. They would not do it. My dad, one time, he was in Orlando. He went to Florida Hospital there in the South, what we used to call the Florida Sand. Remember, we call it Florida Sand, the old hospital in Orlando. Dad had a quadruple bypass, and he said, well, my surgeon is giving me a hard time that I need to walk around the block. And he said, I can't do it. I said, yeah, you can, you can do it. He goes, son, I cannot do that. Then I had to change. What did I have to do? I had to say, yes, sir, you can do it. Now, y'all from the South understand why I had to say yes, sir, right? So I said, yes, sir, you can do it. Now, it gave me permission to dispute somewhat. And so I said, yes, sir, you can do it. He said, I can't. I said, yes, sir, you can do it. He goes, how? I said, can you walk from the dining room in that chair you're sleeping in, because you can't sleep in a bed yet, to the mailbox and back? And he was in a subdivision. He said, I can do that. Good. So he goes and he goes out to the, I don't know if I can do this or not. So he goes out back and forth. And then after a couple of days, I said, can you go to the neighbor's mailbox? Well, that's not very far. So I can do that. So he goes back and forth. And finally, in a month's time, he lived in the middle of the block. He'd gone down, up, and halfway across, and came back and down and back across. And he was so excited because he had done half the block. What he'd really done. I said, tomorrow, Mom got in the car and she dried, make sure he didn't have some acute episode. I said, Dad, tomorrow you did this? Well, don't go back. Just going around the rest of the block. He'd walked around the block. Just a little at a time, little at a time. So with yourself, be realistic. Start a little at a time. If you work with other people, don't do too much or they'll spit the hook. Who's ever gone fishing? Can you just take it and jerk that hook? No. You gotta fish. And we gotta fish with people too. Do you drink milk? If so, how often and how much? I had these 2 ladies come in, and the mother and daughter, they both were school bus drivers. And the lady came in because her child was having asthma problems. And dairy can be a major issue for asthma problems. And I asked the lady, I said, does your child drink milk? Yes. What kind of milk do they drink? She goes, I don't know, it's a grocery store. I said, is it cow's milk? Oh, no. She goes, no, it's not cow's milk. We can't afford cow's milk. well, what kind of milk you buying at the store? Well, you know, stuff in the jugs. And I said, is it oat milk? Is it almond milk? Is it cashew milk? What kind of milk? I don't know. It's the milk in them milk jugs. And I said, ma'am, that's cow's milk. No, you only can get cow's milk at a farm. And I said, no, ma'am, that's cow's milk your child's drinking. You know, some folks just don't know. They just don't know. Dairy can be a huge cause of many health issues, from irritable bowel syndrome, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, asthma. Many issues can be due to dairy consumption. I had someone told me, I may have shared this with somebody. Maybe it was a lady on an airplane yesterday, and it wasn't y'all. So I like cows. I wish I could have cows, but there's only two things you can do with cows. You can milk them or beef them, and I'm not going to do either of those anymore. So I just get to enjoy other people's cows if I go over to their dairy or their farm. And this guy comes in, he and his wife, and they're dairymen, and they were talking about the cows, and I like talking about cows. And I was talking about the cows, what kind of cows they have, and what kind of dairy they had. And the guy goes, we don't have a bull. And I said, I understand we did AI, artificial insemination. And he goes, no, we don't do that either. And I go, well, what do you do to have calves? He goes, we don't have calves. But you're a dairy farm. Yeah. Well, how do you get milk? Oh, he says, we just pump full of hormones and beef them out in 2 years, get another cow. So they take a heifer, fill her full of hormones. She then starts producing milk. You eat that ice cream, you eat that butter, you drink that milk for 2 years, and then they beef off that cow, sell it and beef it off, and then do the whole process over and over again. So what are you getting in that? You're getting all those hormones when you're eating the butter and the milk and the cheese. Do you drink tea? If so, how often, how much? Do you drink coffee? If so, how often and how much? You want to get specific. So you're figuring out what they're drinking. What's the problem with tea and coffee and soft drinks? Caffeine. And we talked last night that if you, whatever volume, if you're drinking a cup of coffee, 8 ounces, you're going to have to drink 8 ounces to make up for your diuretic effect of the caffeine. It is not, I don't as much as I used to, but I still do get people come in and, do you drink coffee? Yep. How much do you drink? 2 pots a day. 2 pots of coffee a day. Now, definitely, if you know a gal who's pregnant, did you know that just 8 ounces of coffee increases the risk of a miscarriage by 4%? So for every cup of coffee that gal drinks, take that number times 4 is the percentage she's increasing the risk of a miscarriage. And look at the same thing for sweet tea, green tea, or soft drinks. Sunshine. How much sunshine do you get every day? Temperance, making the right choices. Do you use tobacco? If so, how often? How much? And why? You know, when you read the American Heart Association's website, they have on there tobacco, smoking cigarettes increases your risk of heart disease. But what a mistake that is. It should say the use of tobacco increases the risk of heart disease. Because chewing oral tobacco, dipping, chewing, snuff, it has nicotine also, which increases your risk of gum, patches. They all have nicotine. All of those increase your risk of whether it's eye disease, diseases in the eye, or of cardiovascular disease. I remember I was doing a stop smoking class one time. A lady came to it, and she was coming to stop smoke and smoking. And on Wednesday night, I was covering oral tobacco. She started coming on Monday night. No, she came in on Thursday night. And then she came Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Yeah, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday. I talked about oral tobacco. And she says, you mean oral tobacco is a problem? Yes, ma'am. She didn't know. Her husband did oral tobacco. Her husband started coming to the class because they just didn't know. They'd heard about smoking tobacco, but they didn't know about oral tobacco was a problem. And that's so much part back years ago in that Southern culture. I remember when I started doing tobacco cessation in Gordon County, Georgia in 1975. The average, if you went to the high school, they had a smoking section for high school kids to smoke. For elementary school, they were not allowed to smoke. So the kids, when they could smoke at the bus stop, but when they got on the bus, they had to put the cigarette out. But they were still allowed to carry their cigarettes in their pocket all day long. The average male started smoking in 4th grade. But he started dipping on average in 2nd grade.
Wow.
Yeah, amazing. Do you use illicit drugs? If so, how often and how much? If they'll tell you. Do you watch television? If so, how often, how much? Is that a concern health-wise? It is. Do you use a computer? If so, how often, how much? And these are questions to ask yourself and the questions to ask other people. Did you know that people who watch a lot of television are more prone to gain weight? Why? Pardon? They're what? Oh, because they're not exercising. Yes. Okay, what else? So they're not exercising. What? Oh, the commercials. Yeah, it's time to go get pizza. Or time to get a Mountain Dew. Snacking. Yes.
Also take you to the other state of your being, is that take you to the trance.
Oh, trance. Yes. You're not using the frontal lobe. It does. It hypnotizes you. And then many times they stay up late at night watching TV. And we know that not getting your sleep increases your risk of obesity and other health problems. So there's multiple reasons that watching television, staying on your iPhone, using your computer can affect your health. Do you have any challenges with pollution where you live or work? Rest. What time do you go to bed? What time do you go to sleep? That's a big question. Don't ask them just what time do you go to bed. They may go to bed at 9 o'clock, but then they may not fall asleep till midnight. What time do you get up? What's the average hours of sleep that you get? What's the quality of sleep? Good or poor? If it's poor, why? I hurt. I have pain. Or men, I got to get up and go to the bathroom. Or women, I'm worrying about the kids or the grandkids or bills or whatever. So you need to look at that. What's going on in the rest component? Trusting God. Do you go to church?
Yes.
Do you spend time in personal study with God?
Yes.
And then there's one, because it is not uncommon for a person to say nope or no to both of these. But then I'll ask them, do you believe in God? And they'll usually tell me yes. So that's actually, I'm looking for those people. Why am I looking for those people? Because that means they're not going to church nowhere. And if you can get them back in contact with God, more so, studying with Him, they might go to church with you because they don't have their church that they're going to. And you can help that person develop that relationship, being a friend with that person, getting them to come to programs like you have here or whatever to develop that relationship. Personality, why do you have health challenges? Personally, what are the causes? You want to write down every time you eat anything. Now this gets a little more, so let's say eat breakfast at 7. What are you doing? You're eating breakfast. What's the food? Breakfast food. Who are you with? Family, mealtime. At 10 o'clock, you take a break. You get a Snickers bar. You get you a Dr. Pepper. Who are you with? Sally. Why? It's habit. And so you want to identify all those times. It's kind of like smoking. When a person is stopping smoking, you want to do before they quit, you want to do a 3-day diary, log. Yes, a diary. Write down every time you smoke a cigarette, what time is it, what are you doing, and who you're with. And at the end of 3 days, you're going to see a trend. You're going to see it's after you eat. When you're drinking your cup of coffee, it's first thing in the morning. It's trending. Well, that first thing in the morning is a real easy cigarette to get rid of. What you do is when you get up, just go get in the shower. How many people smoke in the shower? They're not going to smoke. And so leave them in for a while. Well, yeah, I need that coffee to wake me up. Well, when you're finished with that shower, take you a good cold shower. And wash yourself real good and have that cold. And if you aren't screaming, Dr. Schultz says it's not cold enough. Mary Lou, I know when she's finished her shower. She's a screaming because she turns it to plumb cold, and we have mountain spring water. You don't need coffee to wake up. You're woke up. And so you want to look at these sons. Let's say that a lot of homes today don't smoke in the house anymore. So where are they smoking? On the porch. Don't go on the porch anymore. The porch is off limits. You can't be on the porch no more. So you aren't going to smoke in the house. You're not allowed in the porch. Or where do you buy cigarettes? Well, when I go buy gas. Well, don't go inside to buy gas. You know, go to a gas station and use a pump and pay outside and don't go inside. So you want to change the routine. So that break in the morning, don't sit with Sally. Go take a walk. Because Sally's eating a Dr. Pepper and drinking a Dr. Pepper and a Snickers bar too, or a donut or something else. Go exercise. And just explain to Sally, I need some exercise. Not because I don't want to be around you. Identify trends. What's the time? What are the foods? Who are you with? Why are you eating at other than meal times? What are the triggers? See, like smoking, there's triggers. Write the specific item, identified trends down. Break time, riding in a car, certain stressors, watching TV, ladies on the telephone, ladies in the bathtub. There's all kinds of times that you know them if you've been a smoker. His most effective temptation today, Satan comes to man as he came to Christ, with his overpowering temptations to indulge appetite. Satan is constantly on the alert to bring the race fully under his control. His strongest hold on man is through that he seeks to stimulate in every possible way. What was an issue involving Eve? Yes, I mean, she wanted to be like God, but appetite, there's food involved. What about Esau? What about the children of Israel out in the desert? What about Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Daniel? What about Christ in the wilderness? Learn his M.O. See, why does Satan use appetite? That's ultimately, who said that? You're right. That's what he ultimately is after, your brain, the most important organ in the body. Yes, it involves every other system in the body. Yes, it can affect your cardiovascular system, diabetes, all kinds of things. But number one, he wants your brain. Why does he want your brain? You cannot discern God's brain when your brain ain't working too good. And that is what he's after. Pardon? It's appetite's huge. Okay, I'm going to see you healthcare workers again. Okay. Remember A and P in anatomy? Did you know that you have remember when we studied muscles in anatomy and we had to go and dissect and we had to, the teacher would put numbers on different muscles and we had to go in on a test and say, oh, that's that muscle and it's that muscle. Did you know there's a brain in the human body called the no muscle? There is. We have a muscle in the brain that's called a no muscle. It's in the brain. And it's when you say no. And the best way to exercise that muscle is say no to appetite. The stronger the no muscle works on saying no to appetite, the stronger you can say no to any other temptation. Because appetite is a huge temptation. And if you have control over appetite, when some other temptation comes around, that's an easy one for you because you've said no to appetite. It's huge. Well, I will read this. Their taste, their appetite is their God. And when the axe is laid at the root of the tree, and those who have indulged their depraved appetites at the expense of health and at the expense of health or touch, their sin pointed out. Now, what's their sin? Appetite. What's their idol? Appetite. Is shown them. They do not wish to be convinced. And although God's voice should speak directly to them to put away those health-destroying indulgences, what indulgence? Appetite. Some would still cling to the hurtful things which they love. They seem joined to their idols, appetite, and God will soon say to His angels, let them alone. See, God does not make you do stuff. Did He make Eve stay away from the... Did He make Adam not... See, Eve, she was tempted. Adam was not tempted. Adam committed suicide. Now, if you think you got a good love affair going, they had the best love affair ever because there's no sin. He loved his wife more than he loved God. And he saw when she brought him that fruit, he knew she was going to die because God said, you're going to die. And he couldn't fathom being without his wife. And he committed suicide by eating. It's kind of like what's the people in history? Yes, Romeo and Juliet. It's huge. So you want to develop a plan of action for each trend in your 3-day personal diary. Each trend you want based on your mission. So at break time, we'll eat a good nutritional dense breakfast. We'll go for a walk in the sunshine and fresh air and drink some water instead of sitting in the break room with Sally. That's your plan. That's TV. I'll do some reading. Drink a warm calming cup of herbal tea and go to bed early by 9 o'clock. So you're writing down a strategic plan. Does that make sense? Okay. Choose a support person. That's important. Whether you're stopping smoking or stopping what other appetite or other addiction you may have. So choose a partner. Support partner. Now I tell you, ladies, if you're stopping smoking and your husband smokes, or men, if you're a smoker and your wife smokes and you're stopping smoking, do not choose your spouse as a partner if they smoke, because many times they don't want you to quit smoking. Because if you quit smoking, then you're going to nag them to quit smoking, and they don't have any desire to quit smoking. So they will sabotage you. So choose somebody else. But if they're going to be a support partner, your spouse, a parent, a sibling, a best friend, a coworker, and so when you have that hankering, y'all know what hankering is, desire for, that piece of cheesecake, you say, well, we learned, Loma Linda Medical School found that if you'll say no to a cigarette for 5 minutes, you can overcome that desire right then. So if you can just say no for 5 minutes, there's a good chance that you can go on and you'll forget it. The other thing you can do is you can call your support person and say, will you talk to me for a few minutes? I really got a hankering to whatever the item is. Also, if you tell people that I'm on a certain plan, then there's some accountability there. Choose a start date, one which is reasonable and obtainable. Stay away from holidays, family vacations, planned events. I had a class that started Thursday night, Everybody came in. It was, I don't know, 40, 50, 60 people in the room. I forgot how many was in that class. Class was full. And so I told everybody, I'm going to leave you alone till Sunday evening. And when we meet Sunday evening at 6 o'clock, that's your last cigarette. We do a cold turkey program here. And so no more cigarettes after 6 o'clock when the program starts Sunday evening. Everybody good with it? Everybody raise their hand but one guy. And I said, why can't you start Sunday night? My mother-in-law is coming to town this weekend. She'll leave Wednesday. I'll quit Wednesday night. I said, I got you. And he quit. He did well. Don't set yourself up. Don't do it when you got, Christmas and you say, oh, I'm going to lose weight. And so Thanksgiving and Christmas come on. That's tough. Don't set yourself up. We have developed a plan of action for each trend in our 3-day personal diary. We have chosen a support partner. We have set a start date which is reasonable and obtainable. Don't set yourself up to fail. Next, we want to do a detox. You want to go to bed by 9 o'clock. You want to drink 2 glasses of warm lemon water first thing in the morning. That lemon water is going to flush out the urinary tract. The warm water is going to stimulate peristalsis. The volume of water helps clean things out also from a peristaltic standpoint. The lemon is going to help with pH. The lemon is also antiviral. Detox your mind. 30 minutes each morning in scripture and prayer. Probably one of the best things I have found. Better if you can do a 3-day water fast, but do a juice detox. Who's ever done a juice detox? It's amazing. Who's ever watched the documentary out of Australia called Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead? Anybody ever watch that? Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. It's a great one. Watch it. It's a very good documentary on juicing. Watch movie 1, not movie 2. He messed up on movie 2. His philosophy at movie 2 was, well, once you get to where you belong, you eat anything you want to, shrimp or lobster or whatever, and then when you get sick again, you can take his program, which was called a reboot. Well, that was money. It's just get rid of the program, get rid of the problem. And the best way to do it is, let's say it's Sunday afternoon, you're driving out in the country, out towards Okeechobee, and you're going by an old farm, and you see this old car sitting out there in the yard. It's a 1957 Chevy out there in the field. And you see it, and you back up, you drive up in the driveway, and you say, ma'am, what you doing with that car out there? And she says, honey, if you want that thing, you can have it. Yes, ma'am, I'll take care of that for you. And you call a buddy of yours who has a rollback, he comes out and gets it. It's probably not ready to drive. You're going to have to restore it. So what's involved in restoring? You've got to take a grinder to it. You're going to have to take a sander to it. You're going to have to use some tiger paw. You're going to have to use some Bondo. You're going to have to sand it some more. You're going to have to go back and forth and prime it and sand it and prime it and sand it and paint it and sand it. It takes a little bit. You're going to have to probably put new tires on it. You're going to have maybe even have to do some new upholstery. And you may even have to do work on some engine work. That's called the restoring process. But once it's restored, do you take a grinder to it? No, you just wash it, you wax it, change the oil, put gas in it, keep it clean. And so the same thing is true when you need to fix health problems. You do a restoring process, and then you do a maintenance program. I like Duke University. It's got a great restoring program. I use Cornell University for the maintenance program. But also, juice detox is really good. So what we do in a juice detox, we do juice, 16 ounces of vegetable juice for breakfast, dinner, and supper. You can watch Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, but Walt, there's not enough nutrition there. Well, who's ever heard of University of Alabama at Birmingham, UAB, Alabama? UAB, Alabama has one of the best cardiovascular programs in the Southeast. UAB's cardiac program is the advanced cardiac team. You don't go to UAB for cardiac unless you've gone to somewhere else and they can't fit you. And then you go to UAB's cardiac team. And if you have significant heart failure, UAB does that for 70 days. 70 days. See, the second most expenditure of the heart in energy is digestion of food. And UAB knows that when you sit down and eat that big old Southern diet, the steak and the eggs and the taters and what else, it takes a lot of energy from the heart. And that's when you have heart attacks, like running up 3 flights of stairs. So UAB says, no, don't eat that steak. Don't, just drink juice. Well, actually, you don't drink it. You chew it. See, when you drink juice, you miss a third of digestion. Who's ever mixed concrete in a wheelbarrow? Anybody? Okay, so you put your sackcrete in a wheelbarrow. You put your water in the wheelbarrow. Is it ready to pour in the hole? You got to mix it until the powder soaks up the liquid and it becomes a compound. Ladies, you made a cake. You have a bowl. You put in flour or whatever you put in there, that powder stuff, and then you put in liquid. Is it ready to go in the oven? You got to mix it. So when you put food in the mouth, the first part of digestion in your stomach, based on your age, for these little young'uns here, it's going to be digested probably within 30 minutes. For us, it could take 45 minutes to an hour to digest in that first phase of digestion in the stomach. And then it moves on to the next stage in the stomach. And then it moves on to the duodenum and still gets broke down more. Well, that first phase of digestion in the stomach, you have to put digestive enzymes in it to break it down. And guess where them digestive enzymes are? In your saliva. And so you have to chew it, masticate it, to where it's pureed and where you're mixing it like a mixer, and it soaks up those digestive enzymes. Whether it's solid food or liquid food, you've got to mix those enzymes in it, or it's going to sit here and you miss that first phase of digestion. So you want to drink the juice. And so UAB does that for 70 days and have amazing outcomes. It's huge. It's huge. There's gallbladder liver cleanses. We do this for you can do it for 3 to 10 days. I like juicing for 60 days. If you have anything really tough like any of the autoimmune diseases, the number one thing I have found to attack autoimmune diseases is juicing. That's just the best thing I found. It's amazing. Or if you can't figure out what to do. Yes, ma'am. Oh, hang on a sec. Someone got a microphone for her? Oh, it's right behind her. There you go.
May I know what kind of juices you...
Yeah, good question. What kind of juices? I like vegetables. You can put a little apple with it, but I like vegetables because you don't want a whole lot of fructose. So, an example. Let's say Mary Lou's making, on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, she makes juices. And so sometimes she'll make 40, 50 juices for people. And so on her green juice, she'll take, say, 4 sticks of celery, kale. 4 sticks of kale. 2 handfuls, help me Mary Lou if I'm wrong, 2 handfuls of spinach, half a bunch of parsley. She'll put, say, 2 stalks of celery, 1/4 of a cucumber, 2 or 3 apples. I like 3. She may do 2, just depending. A half of a lemon, a piece of ginger the size of your thumb, or if you're Mary Lou, the size of your fist. No, I'm kidding. She likes a lot of ginger. And maybe some turmeric. Her orange juice, which is not oranges, it's carrot, it's orange in color. She'll do 4 to 5 carrots, 2 sticks of celery, a 4, what? Yeah, these are making 16-ounce juices. Thank you. And so you're doing a 1/4 of a cucumber. You're doing 2 to 3 apples, depending on the size of the apple. And then you're doing a half a lemon, a piece of ginger. Now, I'll tell you this in a minute. And for her red juice, it's the orange juice with beets in it. Say a fourth to half a beet, depending on the size. I had this lady call me one time, and she was mad as a hornet. She says, "Why are you trying to kill me and my husband?" I said, "What are you talking about? Why are you trying to kill me and my husband?" I said, "Ma'am, what are you talking about?" She said, "We are peeing and pooping blood." I said, "Ma'am, what are you doing?" She said, "The juice, and we're juicing and we're peeing and pooping blood, and you're trying to kill us." I said, "Ma'am, did you put any beets in there?" She said, "Yes." "How many did you put in?" "Well, I put 2 in each one of them." I said, "Ma'am, you're peeing and pooping beet juice. So be careful on your beets." But what I want to say here is, when you use food, Mary Lou doesn't use recipes very much. Well, she uses them, but most of the time she uses 2 spoons. You know how to cook with 2 spoons? She'll stir it, and then come back. That's how she cooks. Well, juicing's the same way. When you make juice, no apple is going to be the same taste. Cucumber, spinach, whatever. So we test it because we want it to be palatable for people. And so it needs a little more of this or a little more of that if you're that picky. Or some people may not be that picky, but we have customers who are that picky. And so it's not a cookie cutter. And so you match it. Yes?
According to the spirit of prophecy, mentioned that mixing vegetable with fruit is not
That's a good question. Do you remember Agatha Thrash?
Yes.
I miss her.
Yes.
She was huge. So Dr. Agatha and I were traveling one time, and I picked her up at the airport, and we were traveling somewhere together. And I'd just talk, and she'd talk. And I said, "Dr. Agatha," and she was a teacher, and that's what was so good about her. She'd teach me. And I said, "Dr. Agatha," I said, "you talk a lot about mixing fruits and vegetables. It's like a tornado in your stomach." See, she came off a dairy farm like I did, and we were just old country folks. And I said, "You talk about mixing fruits and vegetables is like a tornado in your stomach." She says, "Yes." I said, "Well, what if you mix fruits and vegetables in juice?" And she said, "Well, what's the problem with mixing fruits and vegetables?" She's a teacher. I said, "Well, your fruit might digest faster, start to putrefy or break down and cause problems." She says, "Yeah." She said, "But in juicing, is that going to happen?" See, when you eat food with fiber in it, it's going to take 2.5 hours to 5 hours to digest. When you take in juice, it's going to be in the blood within 15 to 20 minutes, fast. She said, "So is it going to be there? Is the fruit going to be there long enough to break down to cause a problem?" I said, "No, probably not." She goes, "Nope, it's not." She says, "Yes, you can mix your fruits and vegetables in juicing."
Also, my last question is, the 16 ounces is for one time or for that 3 day?
That's that one time? Well, it depends. Now, if I'm attacking cancer, who's heard of the Gershon program? Have you done Gershon? For 12 to 13 hours a day? How'd you do? How many days did you do it?
Oh, I did it for like 6 months.
6 months? Woo. Anybody else do Gershon? Gershon is a phenomenal program. It really is. Dr. Gershon was in California, Southern Cal, then went on down to Tijuana. And it's an excellent program. Used to do 12 hours, or you do 8 ounces every hour on the hour for 12 hours. Now Gershon does it for 13 hours. It's amazing. It's my favorite nutrition program for cancer. It works very, very well. And so it depends on what you're after. So if it's a cancer, I'm after 8 ounces. If I'm after just this here, I'm looking at 16 ounces each meal. Now, I had this lady come in one time, and again, it's like fishing. My goal is compliance. And sometime, remember we said they're not even on the alphabet? You got to start with Z, not playing A. And I had this lady come in. Blood sugar was running, it was high, 300 and some. She was 398 pounds. And I know this lady. Boy, she loved to eat. I mean, she really liked to eat. And I'm thinking, and she's willing to juice. And I'm thinking, how am I going to get this lady full enough? And I said, okay, So let's do 16 ounces 4 times a day. Or if you want to do a quart 3 times a day. I mean, when we're doing juicing at 12, did you do it 12 times or 13 times?
Do what now?
The Gershon. For 12 times a day or 13 times a day?
Well, I did 8 juices.
Oh, so you just did 8 juices for 8 ounces each. Okay? Okay. So she wasn't doing the cancer protocol. The cancer protocol is 8 ounces, 12 to 13 times a day.
And the enemas.
Oh, yeah, and the enemas, and we can come back to that. So it depends on what you're doing. So she comes in after a day of juicing, 16 ounces. She tries to do it 4 times a day, and she says, I can't do this program. And I said, why? She says, there's too much. I'm thinking, wow, how's this lady getting too much? She loves to eat. I said, so what do you reckon you can do? She says, I could do it twice a day. I said, great, do it twice a day. So usually you're doing it 2 to 3 times a day. On Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, he's doing it 3 to 4 times a day. That's what you're doing. Let's go back to the enemas. So Gershon does coffee enemas. And the reason they do that is it does do liver cleansing, and it is also extremely effective in helping with pain. I do like enemas. I like tea enemas for cancer because you're going to absorb that in the colon. But it's a therapeutic issue. My great-granddad and grandmother had graduated from Florida Hospital, and I think 13 was the first year they graduated, class out of Florida Sand, 1913. And Granddad went to Battle Creek, and they were married, but he went to Battle Creek, she went to Chattanooga, he worked for Catalog, and she went to Chattanooga and started working. And on 9th Street was a whole bunch of rich homes. And she would go, and at that time, it was a trend in rich women to get enemas every day. And that's what grandmother did as a nurse. She would go and give these highfalutin women enemas every day. Well, why does she have to go back and give them enemas every day? Because enemas can cause your body to depend on enemas for peristalsis, to have a bowel movement. And so I'm not a big person just do enemas all the time. There can be a therapeutic use. If it's for pain, I would rather a person do a coffee enema than morphine. I've got a good friend. He's an anesthesiologist. He went and learned from Charlotte Gershon down at Tijuana at Gershon Clinic. His grandmother had cancer, a lot of pain. She was on morphine, and she was looped out, dying, not able to communicate. So my friend went down, learned how, taught his family, and they started doing coffee enemas, discontinued the morphine. Grandma did die, but they were able to communicate. And the coffee enemas did the job of pain management. Gershon also uses the enemas for a liver detox. I'll show you a different liver detox I like a little bit better. Was there another question up here? Yes, there, yes.
Oh, I have a question regarding doing the carrot. Mm-hmm. If you want to do like a carrot cleanse, I understand that it does purge your system, so it might come out on your coloring of your skin. Is that
what now?
When you do the carrot cleanses, it purges your system, and I understand that it could change the color of your skin because it's purging.
Do you remember Lorraine Day? Lorraine Day had breast cancer, and that's all she ate. All she did was carrot juice. I've done a lot of juicing over the last 24 years. I've never seen anybody go orange. Only if I've seen people be a yellow orange from jaundice, from cirrhosis of the liver, but I've never seen juicing turn their skin.
So
I've heard it could happen. I think it's more of a myth. It might it's kind of like they say if you take colloidal silver, you'll turn into a Smurf and you'll turn blue. And I've never seen anybody turn blue from a colloidal silver. I'm not saying it can't happen, but I've seen a lot of colloidal silver used also.
Actually, there was an episode on Oprah. This guy did turn blue from colloidal silver.
And it could happen, but it's rare. Yeah, that's an anomaly. Because I see a lot of people use colloidal silver and it doesn't turn their skin.
Question with enemas. What do you think of wheatgrass implants after an enema?
I don't see that as a problem. because you're going to absorb. It would be just like doing a herbal tea enema. You want that absorption into the colon. And wheatgrass is amazing.
It is.
It is. It's got a lot of chlorophyll. And
Gets rid of a lot of mucus.
pardon?
Also, it pulls out a lot of mucus.
Wheatgrass is good. I mean, your next bowel movement's going to clean it right out. It's not going to be a problem. It's like if I have a person, someone called me just the other day. What did they have? Oh, they had something going on in their colon. I forgot what it was. And I told them, I said, well, get an aloe vera plant and carve it. You know, strip the outside, take that inner meat, like a fillet, and cut out the size of an enema. Remember where it's going. And freeze it. And then when you lay down, because gravity doesn't work too well. And so use some type of a lubricant, insert it when you go to bed, and that will sit in there at night and melt and treat whatever. And I think she had colorectal cancer. And so she pushed it in there, and it sat there and dissolved at night and treated that cancer. I also use it for internal hemorrhoids also. So the next bowel movement's going to flush it right out. And wheatgrass is great. PO, by mouth, or enema. Any other? Yes?
I have a question for you. What can one do if you have sickle cell anemia?
If you have what?
Sickle cell anemia?
Sickle. That's a hard one. There was something I was reading on sickle just recently. What was it? And I called Dr. Ted Watkins. I mentioned him last night, my good friend up in D.C., and he works a lot with sickle. And I called him to let him know probably one of the most important things for sickle is if you have to have a blood transfusion, you want European blood. That's the only blood you want, is what the hospitals tell us from the lab, because you're getting a chance of getting someone else who had sickle and compounding the problem. And so obviously if I fly you out from a car wreck, they're not going to know exactly what the source of that blood was on that helicopter. But if you do go in, on a trauma situation, and you go in and they're just filling you full of fluids just to keep voluming you, they're not going to look. But the larger hospitals are telling me that if a person does have sickle, if a person has sickle and they know it, they're going to look for European blood so it doesn't have the propensity of exacerbating it. Yes, question in the back. Good nutrition is important for sickle. Having good nutrition is very, very important for sickle. But I don't have anything that I know to plumb get rid of it.
Mine is not a question, but mine is a testimony.
Yes.
2019, my 2000. Huh? Why?
Yes.
I'm not an upfront person.
Okay.
That's why I always sit in back. But however, she is pushing me. 2019, my husband had 3 strokes, and then he was diagnosed with kidney disease. However, I was looking at Dr. Walt's program on television, and he spoke about his father had kidney disease at age 70, and he lived to be 105, you told me?
That's my great-grandfather, yes.
Anyhow, I contacted him because that was like a red flag for me. Here's this man, 70, and was able to live until 105. And I thought, well, if it will work for him, certainly it will work for my husband. And now this is 2024. I want to give God thanks and praise, number
Yes.
one.
Yes.
And I want to thank God that that particular day, I put on the television and listened to your program. And that's how you start treating Frank. Of course, we met over the telephone never in person. So last night was the first time that you met him. And from 2019 until now, they have been pushing him to do dialysis. And it's like a weekly thing. We go to the doctor, and it's the same thing every week. You need to get on dialysis. However, every time I hear that, basically my faith sometimes waver. And what I will do, I will call him, and he would say to me, are you giving him, you put us on the Duke diet. Of course, I'm not consistent in whatever I do, but he was on the Duke diet. Then you put him on the dandelion, you put him on the corn silk. Thank God for Loretta, she's his, no, not counseling, her supplier.
Yes.
Yes. And so therefore, he does that. And then you also put him on the CoQ10 and some other stuff.
Activated charcoal.
And of course, you kick me off the radar and you introduce me to your best friend. So I speak with both of you guys. But my point is that the program does work. You just have to stick to it. And it's been a blessing ever since. Of course, Frank is not out of the woods. Every week we go, his creatinine level is high, which is not a good thing, because, and also his GFR, every time it drops, of course, it sends a red flag that he must get on dialysis. But I could testify today, the program that you put him on, he is here, he's not on dialysis. Of course, he's on a kidney waiting list. And the last time when I spoke to you, you told me continue praying and continue trusting God. So that's
exactly
my
right.
testimony for today.
And it's true, consistency is important. I had a lady come in a couple months ago, and she says, do you remember me? And I said, no, ma'am. And she's sitting there with her husband, and she says, 3 years ago, I came in here, and because she doesn't live where I live, she traveled to come in and see me. And she says, 3 years ago, I came in, and I was in renal failure, and I was getting ready to go on dialysis. And she said, and it was the same program that I mentioned to you for your husband. And she said, I told my physician I wanted 3 months to try this program. And she was scheduled to put in a shunt, port, what is it? Port. And my brain just went plumb blank. And so she, 3 months later, she went in, and he says, okay, we need to put this in. And she says, well, I want you to look at my labs. He says, I've seen your labs. And she says, have you seen the labs I just did that just came back? He says, no, I saw your labs from 3 months ago. And she says, I want you to look at these labs. He says, I've already looked at your labs. He starts getting indignant. And she says, you're not doing nothing to me until you look at the current labs. So he angrily gets up, stomps out, comes back. She says his face is white as sheet paper. And he comes back in and said, what did you do? You have no renal failure. He says, your numbers are perfect. And she's still, and it's now 3 years later. And so consistency is important. It really is. And because they told Granddad, they told him he was going to die. They didn't have dialysis in 1958. And he went back up on the mountain, and he'd learned from Kellogg, worked for Kellogg. He's the guy that graduated in 13 at SAN. And he started using, he just used corn silk. And it totally reversed his renal failure. There's another question. Does someone have here's one over here. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. Go ahead, ladies first.
Okay, if somebody has Parkinson's disease, can that be reversed? I have a friend with that, and as far as the juicing, which juices are best for someone dealing with that?
Well, I like the vegetable juices for any of it. And with a little apple's fine. For Parkinson's, I haven't found a way to plumb get rid of Parkinson's, but I've seen significant improvement. And these are the
improvement. What kind of improvement can someone make? She's like bedridden just about. And
the shaking, ambulation, clearness of thought, and the things that I've seen work. And we used to see CBD work very well, and then I noticed CBD wasn't working as well. And they have changed the extraction of CBD and what they used to do. And so the new process, which is more economical, we're not having the same effect with CBD. There's another item called copaiba. Does anybody know copaiba? Some people pronounce it copaiba. But copaiba is phenomenal. It comes from Brazil.
What is it and how do you spell it?
C-O-P-I-A-B-A, C-O-P-A-I-B-A. Y'all, I speak Southern, and I took phonics, and they just don't work too good together. But copaiba, and comes out of Brazil, out of a tree that's 30 to 50 years old, and they tap it like a maple tree, and then they make an essential oil out of it. And 2 drops 3 times a day, I've seen a good effect of copaiba. We also have seen a physician figure this out. Riding a bicycle can help with it. Dancing can help with it. Another one that I've seen to do a fairly good result is a far infrared lamp. Far infrared lamp. And it's a sauna. Thank you, Mary Lou. It's a sauna. And using that far infrared, there's different far infrareds out on the market. There's some that just warm you up and it feels good or it's not very strong. You want a medical grade. And there's 2 components. One, it's strong enough wattage-wise, and also it has the right frequency to be medical grade. But a good far infrared sauna, 20 minutes a day, I've seen symptoms significantly reduce with Parkinson's.
If she's bedridden, really could hardly move or do anything, is any of this stuff going to help with?
It's worth a try.
If the issue's that bad, and is it Fra infrared, F-R-A?
F-R-A, then I-N-F-R-A-R-E-D. Now, I mentioned this last night, and I didn't mention it this afternoon. I failed to mention it. On all of the things that we talk about, prayer is most important first. Ask God to bless it. We ask Him to bless our food, ask Him to bless treatments that we also do.
I also have a question about diabetes. Should I hold that for later, or?
Let's address diabetes real quick. So it kind of falls into where we are right now. So the diabetes is, and what's our time frame this afternoon? Okay, I'm here to, as long as y'all want me to be here. So you got to look at root cause. And with diabetes, there's 3 major things I have found that causes type 2 diabetes. So our body has trillions of cells, and around the cells they have insulin receptors. And type 2 diabetes is insulin resistance. And that is where the insulin receptor does not properly work on the cells. And therefore the insulin doesn't properly open up that receptor and allow glucose into the cell. 3 things I have found causes that insulin receptor not to work well. One is if the cell gets too big. Then it doesn't work well. You ever been in the wintertime when it's kind of cold or wet and the door just don't open right? Or the window doesn't open right, swells? Well, when the cell gets larger, it quits functioning as well. Number 2, it gets clogged up. Number 3 is inflammation can cause it not to work. So what do? When the cell's too big? Shrink it. Go back to normal size. The best way to do that is to go to ideal body weight. And people say, well, how do I know what ideal body weight is? Well, look at the BMI, body mass index. And people say, well, I'm big boned. Well, then what I prefer using. Now, in the medical community, pretty well everyone except sports medicine uses body mass index, BMI. Sports medicine uses something called percent body fat. Now, we used to have to dunk people into a cylinder to identify percent body fat. And then we started pinching people with those calipers. Remember when we used to use calipers, pinching? Well, people don't let you pinch them no more. And so we don't use calipers anymore usually. And so you can go to a gym or you can buy at Walmart yourself. They make these scales that will do percent body fat, or an Omron or the little hand thing that you can hang on to, and it will tell you what your percent body fat is. And men have different body fat than women, just the way we're made. Y'all have a higher body fat than we are. And so just go down to a gym, ask them to use their percent body fat, ask them what is a good percent number, find out what yours is, and it gives you a target to shoot for. And therefore, you don't have to worry about big bones. Everything's the same. So you shrink the cell to the ideal weight. The next item is when the cell gets clogged up. Now, what it can get clogged up with is fat. It's probably not as bad here as it is where I'm from. Where I'm from, we fry everything. Everything. Maters, potatoes, pigs, chickens, ice cream, ochre, Twinkies, Oreos. I mean, if we can fry it, we fry it. And then if we don't fry it, we pour oil in it. My grandma, when she'd make a pot of green beans, she put more than 1 cup of vegetable oil in it. And it looked like an oil slick on top. And it tasted delicious for my tongue. Remember my genetically predisposed southern tongue? My southern predisposed tongue? Today I would not want to eat it because Mary don't cook that way. We don't eat that way anymore. And so I would not want to eat it now, but it was delicious at my southern tongue at that age. And so we eat a lot of oil, whether it's fat, whether it's fried or poured in something. Another thing that's chock full of fat is dairy. And the third thing that's chock full of fat is meat. And so Duke University found if we stop the fat of oil, dairy, and meat. Yes, you still got to have some fats. Remember, fats, proteins, carbohydrates we talked about last night. You got to have some fat. Your avocados, your olives, and stuff like that. But your oils, your dairy, and your meat, Duke University found if you stop that, the body will actually clean those receptors and clean them out. It's pretty cool. And they start working again. The third thing is inflammation. Harvard found that the number one cause of inflammation today is processed foods. Sleep deprivation. There's a number of things that can cause inflammation. And you want to get rid of those causes for inflammation. So we use the Duke diet, or you can use the juicing. I don't know if I have the Duke here to make it real easy here for y'all. Yeah, quit working on me. See if you can go ahead. Next. 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 Keep going. Next. Back up one. Back up one. There you go. So, if you'll do this, it's the Duke University diet. If you went to Duke, it's $13,000 your first visit. $6,500 each visit thereafter. It's an amazing diet. Dr. Kempner's the one who did it. For breakfast, it's 3 servings of fruit, 1 cup of brown rice. And unless you go to Africa, they don't want just 6 servings of fruit. They want 3 servings. They want 6 servings. So I tell them you can do 6 half servings. You're still getting total 3 servings. And so you do 1 cup of brown rice and 3 servings of fruit. For the noon meal, 1 cup of brown rice with a salad. No dressing, no salt, no oil, no cheese, no dairy. Why? It's fat. And so Duke said no fat. You can put some lettuce, some salsa, something like that. And then supper, for diabetes, it's best not to eat anything. Now, when I went to the clinic, now we had over a 98% reversal rate of type 2 diabetes. That should be enough evidence to tell you it works. But I noticed they only serve breakfast and supper. So I go in and I tell the docs, I said, listen, you got to do breakfast, mid-morning snack, dinner, afternoon snack, supper, and HS snack, our sleep snack. And they decided to play with me. Why? Well, it's a standard of practice. It's what the American Dietetic Association recommends. Then they asked me one more word and I walked out of the room. One more question. How many diabetics you reverse where you come from? In 20 years, 0. And so then I go back to my office and I call that little lady that I talked about a few minutes ago, Dr. Agatha Thrash. I said, Dr. Agatha, we got over a 98% reversal rate, but they are only serving breakfast and dinner. They're not doing a mid-morning snack, a mid-afternoon snack, an HS snack, and supper. And she started laughing. And she says, that's how you reverse diabetes. She says, breakfast means break the fast from supper to breakfast. But she said, if you break the fast from dinner to breakfast, it will reverse the diabetes much, much faster. So we just do breakfast and dinner. That's it, period. Yes?
As far as like the keto, diet program, whatever you want to call it. So they're allowing, those fats, and they're saying that stuff works for diabetes too. So it's confusing because
Sure.
a lot of people have different views and how to deal with things. And then I read, some of Dr. Furman's book on how to reverse diabetes, and then, he has his thing, if you're, familiar with that, and I think he's also no meat or whatever. So it's very hard to, know which is, going to work, and then what it is that you can actually stick with.
Yes.
So that's kind of my challenge.
Sure.
So are certain oils okay? So is
No.
MCT oil okay? No. Regular coconut
No.
oil, avocado oil.
No. So according to Duke, according to Cornell, according to Cambridge, according to Cleveland Clinic with Dr. Esselstyn, according to Pritikin, according to, who's the other guy? Dean Ornish, you don't want any oil in that reversal process, is what they found to be the most effective. So there's several stages you do for reversing diabetes. First is you got to find an effective nutrition program. Then the second stage is adequate water. The third stage is exercise. Now, Duke University, we talked about doing exercise 4 times a day. And so I noticed that when a patient would come in at, say, 6 in the morning, I'd check the blood sugar and it'd be, say, 170, 180. I'd send them for a power walk for 30 minutes. They'd come back, it'd be in 110s, 120. So I told a friend of mine who worked at Loma Linda Medical School, is on staff there, and he said, that's interesting. So I saw him 2 years later, and he said, Walt, we did a study on what you told me 2 years ago, and we found that a 20-minute power walk lowers the blood sugar more than 1 shot of insulin. That's huge. So then you see what Kempner's doing at Duke. He's exercising 4 times a day, so that's like 4 shots of insulin 4 times a day. And then you go to bed at 9 o'clock. That's the Duke program. And you stay on the Duke program until you're at ideal body weight. You have a normal A1C of 5.6 or less. You've got a morning fasting of 100 or less, or 99 or less, same thing. And you're on no meds. So the biggest factor is the weight, because I can get a person come to me I had a guy come to me at 572 pounds. That's going to take a couple days to healthy-wise lose that weight. We don't want him to lose that weight in 3 months. I met a lady at Duke that lost 200 pounds. And so it just takes time. The longest I've ever seen a person be on the Duke program who was in heart failure, they told him he was going to die in 3 months, less than 3 months. He stayed on the Duke program. He lived right at 6 years. And because he could only get his EF from 20 to 30, and to keep it there, he had to stay on the diet. And I asked him, I said, are you bored of this diet? He goes, yes. He said, but I'd rather see my kids, my grandkids, and my great-grandkids, and it was keeping him alive, his heart functioning. He actually died of COVID at 6 years, 1 month shy of 6 years. And
Doesn't rice, though, raise the insulin level
Pardon?
quicker? Doesn't rice, though, raise the insulin quicker?
So what happens, will that food still bring the insulin where it belongs? Okay, so you're worried about the insulin level being the glucose being too low.
By having rice too high.
So, pardon?
By raising the insulin level too high.
That diet won't
because
raise
you
it
have
too high.
rice.
Yes, so it's brown rice, not white rice. There's a difference. And Kempner started with white rice, but the brown rice does a better job. Now, for some people, quinoa does a better job than the brown rice. But for the most part, brown rice does a good job. Now, low blood sugar is not diabetes. You've done one of two things. Either you've had too much medication for the amount of food you ate, or you didn't eat enough food for the amount of medication you took, which is the same thing. And so what happens is you stay on the medication, and we do this. And as the blood sugar starts to come down, which it will, as it starts to come down, either you're going to do sliding scale, if you know how to do sliding scale, or you call your doctor and say, listen, I'm doing the Duke program, my blood sugar's come down, it's running about 90, 80, how do you want me to adjust the meds? And you just keep cutting back until you don't use any meds at all. But it works. I know, there's different philosophies out there. This is just the most healthy one I found. That works. You're welcome. Yes, sir.
Yes, I was curious about neuropathy, if there's anything that you found to either halt or stop spread of neuropathy, or what can be done to alleviate pain from neuropathy?
Yes. The best thing that I found, and I have neuropathy, it just came out of the blue. So the best thing I have found is something called Healthy Feet and Nerves by Terry Naturally. It's guaranteed 100%. If it doesn't work, get your money back. You do two. You can do 2 in the morning, 2 at night, and Healthy Feet and Nerves is amazing. I have a friend that has problems with neuropathy. I took him a bottle and gave it to him. I said, "Here, use this." I saw him about a week later, and he said, "Walt, neuropathy's almost plumb gone." He now comes and gets it from me. His wife was so excited because his job is a stand-up job. He works behind a counter all day long, and he was looking at having to take early retirement because it was hurting so bad. And he says, "I can keep working now." He said, "I'm fine." And his wife came in and saw me, and she said, "Thank you so much." She says, "We can go to Asheville. We can go places where before his feet were hurting so much from work. He just worked, worked to keep money coming in, but he didn't stand any other time because it just hurt so bad." You can try magnesium. I found that to be helpful to some people. You can do an Epsom salt bath. You can do a magnesium oil. I found magnesium oil to be beneficial. You can either have a rollerball oil, magnesium oil, and you can spray it on there, or you can roll it on there. I like the rollerball. But if you use magnesium oil, you want to use one that has aloe vera in it, because the magnesium oil can feel like a bunch of centipedes walking on you. And when you have the aloe vera with it, it cuts that component out. And it transdermally gets in very fast. But that's the best thing I have found.
Just to follow up, if you don't mind, the Healthy Feet and Nerves, is that an oil or
No,
is that
it's a capsule by a company called Terry Naturally.
Okay.
Yeah, come tomorrow and Mary Lou will show it to you.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. Yes, in the back.
So I have a question from someone online.
Good.
And I kind of want to jump back to the juicing and the detox portion.
Yes.
So they were asking if they're on blood thinners, can they juice for the detox? And if they can, what are some of the vegetables that they can and can't take? Because some of them will say they can't have vegetables with vitamin K, things like that.
That's correct. They may be afraid of your greens. And that's the only one I'd watch. And so the others, they should be perfectly fine. Just go to, go to our website, themustardseed.us, themustardseed.us, go to education, click on handouts, downloads, one of them, and then you click on juice recipes, and it's a page and a half of juice recipes, and they give you all kinds of them, and just cut out the ones that have the greens. That's the one I'd be cautious with.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about juicing. So we do green juicing at home, but my mom says that you have to consume it right after you make it because otherwise you lose your property. So how many hours after can you still consume it?
Good question. How soon do you have to drink it? It depends on your juicer. Some juicers are more effective, and some you just need to drink it now. But depending on the juicer, and then the other is, it depends on the oxidation. So a food scientist taught me this. She's a nutritionist, a registered dietitian, and a food scientist. Very smart lady. And she said, what you do you know what a food saver is? That sucks air out of a bag after you've eaten it? After you've eaten the food and it sucks air out? Well, you take a food saver, and they have this little white top you can get off Amazon for either smallmouth or largemouth jars. And so you put your juice in a mason jar. Now, do not fill it closer than 1 inch from the top, or that machine will suck that juice up in your machine and mess up your machine. So make sure it's at least 1 inch below the top. Put your top on it, your canning jar top on it. Then put this white thing on top, turn on, and you suck the air out of it. Dr. McCullough said if you don't use that, you can take it and just fill it plumb up to the top, where it's plumb across the top, and then put your top on it, and you're not going to have the oxygen causing oxygenation. Put it in the refrigerator. We have people that go 3 to 5 days with it. Another thing you can do is you can take it and you can put it in a Ziploc freezer baggie. Now, not plumb full, so it still has some movability, and put it in the freezer, and you can freeze it. And then pull it out and thaw it, and you can use it that way. So, yes, we do have people that will use it for several days because it does take some time, juicing, but it depends on the quality of the machine and how well you preserve it. Yes, sir.
Have you run into any fast or cleanse that helps with blood clots?
Okay, blood clots. You have to be careful with blood clots. We used to put baskets in, and you don't see them putting baskets anymore. And if you throw that clot, you can die. And so I'm very cautious on blood clots. Definitely, if you have a blood clot, you don't want to do any massage. If it's, say, in your legs, because you might throw it. If you want something to try to dissolve the clot, the best thing I know of is something called nattokinase. Are anybody in here Japanese? It comes from the natto plant, and so they pronounce it nattokinase. Nattokinase. Dr. Agatha taught me nattokinase or nattokinase. And it comes from the natto plant. And it helps to dissolve. But I'm very cautious. I don't want to throw somebody's clot. So I don't really delve into clots because I don't know how to do it safely without having the potential. Yes, sir. It's a very good question. I don't know if it was me what I would do, but I'd just be very cautious.
Well, maybe I'll just talk to you later then.
Okay.
I do have a question for you.
Yes.
What you want to do?
If you use the microphone. So people out there can hear you.
Thank you. Yes, sorry. It's part 2 of my question. I have bone farts. I had a very bad crisis 5 months ago.
You have what?
Crises, the sickle cell, when you have a sickle cell attack,
sickle, okay.
It's called a crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a bad crisis about 5 months ago. I was in a coma for 3 weeks.
Ooh.
When I woke up, I'm not able to walk like I did before. I was told that I have a lot of bone farts in my left leg, and I had the blood clots and so forth. But in either case, what can I do to rebuild that bone? Because I deal with that, and I deal with
The
pain.
bone structure itself?
Yes, from what I can understand, is like the marrow in my bone has deteriorated. It's like
So is the structure of the bone deteriorated also?
No.
Oh, okay.
Just the blood, just the marrow within the bone. And I do have tingling in my tongue and my feet, and that's a constant thing, and they don't know why. No one seems to know what is causing this.
Yes.
They just blame it all on the sickle cell because they don't know, so blame it on what they do know.
So I don't have experience with that, but let me give you a name and phone number. I'll give you the same name and phone number I gave this lady back in the back row, and that's Dr. Ted Watkins. Ted Watkins is a surgeon who's gone to lifestyle medicine, and Ted works a lot with sickle. Did any of y'all go to Oakwood? Any Oakwood graduates? Ted graduated from Oakwood, then went on medical school, worked at NIH, and he's done a lot with not only, he has the best record with kidneys on anti-rejection in all of Northeast America. But he works a lot with sickle. I would call Watkins. And so get with me and I can give you his phone number. I just don't have the experience in what you're talking about, so I don't want to hypothesize. Thank you. Is there a question over here?
TK. I was going to ask the spelling.
Oh, nattokinase?
W-A-T.
Oh, Watkins, W-A-T-K-I-N-S, Watkins, Ted, or Theodore Watkins. Interesting, I had a lady a couple weeks ago, I referred somebody to him, No, she didn't know no Ted Watkins. He's in D.C., she lives in the Maryland area. And she called back so excited. She says, you didn't tell me it's Theodore. She says, we worked at NIH together. So she was glad to reconnect. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Can you please spell, what was the name of the company for the Healthy Feet and Nerves?
Terry, T-E-R-R-Y.
T-E-R.
T as in Tom.
Okay.
T-E-R-R-Y, like a male's name, Terry. Natural Lee. N-A-T-U-R-A-L-L-Y. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, and then I think she's going to have the phone number for Watkins back there. Is that right? Yes. Okay. Oh, is that his office number or personal number? This is his personal number. No, let me not get that out over the internet. Okay. We might have people all over the world calling him. He needs to do some work. So, yes, get with me and I'll give you his number. Yes, Marley.
Can you share the two things we used to do for neuropathy before we got something that was so easy?
Yes. So for neuropathy, we used to use not hot and cold, but warm and cool. Hot and cold can be, with neuropathy, who is it has the neuropathy? You. Who is it? You have neuropathy? So do you ever notice that you just can't tolerate extreme temperatures anymore? Have you ever noticed if you bump something with your foot, it hurts a lot more than it used to? Yes.
If you don't mind, so she has sickle cell anemia, so she's unable to handle cold.
Okay.
Like extreme temperatures.
Right. So you don't want to do hot and cold.
Right.
In neuropathy, you don't want to do hot and cold. So what you want to do is you want to do warm and cool. You want a contrast. And usually folks can tolerate 100 degrees. And they can tolerate 70 degrees. Whatever you can tolerate, even if it's a 10-degree contrast. 3 minutes warm, 1 minute cool. 3 minutes warm, 1 minute cool. And you have vasodilation, vasoconstriction. Vasodilation, vasoconstriction, you're going to increase that vascular flow. And then I also use Epsom salt in there. What was the other one, Mary Lou? Oh, yeah. The mini trampoline. Mini trampoline is amazing. So who's ever heard of Dr. Harold Cherney? How many of y'all have the book Natural Remedies Encyclopedia? Natural Remedies Encyclopedia. It's by, who's the two names on there? You got Vance Farrell and you have Harold Cherney. And Harold Cherney, we were together at a conference out in California and he said, Walt, you need to get a good mini trampoline. And I had one that was a Montgomery's Ward one. And it looked like a triangle. Rectangle. The springs on it. Well, you want it to taper on the end, kind of like a football. Remember the old rocking horses we had when we were kids that tapered on the end, the springs? Well, that's what you're looking for, a mini trampoline that tapers on the end. Because it can, when it goes down, it jerks back up, or when it goes top, it jerks back down too aggressively. It's too hard on the organs. It's too hard on the joints. So Cherney talks me into getting 3 of them. I put them in the gym. They come in. The first day I had them, put them up, put patients on them. The next day, everybody had flu-like symptoms. They were sick as a dog. Felt like someone beat them with a baseball bat. So I call up Cherney the next day, the next morning, after all these people are sick, they're in the room, they're not getting out. I said, Cherney, what is going on? All these people are sick as a dog. And he said, he started laughing. I said, Cherney, why are you laughing? And he says, Walt, what'd you do? I said, I did 15 minutes BID twice a day. He just started laughing again. And I said, Cherney, why are you laughing? He said, I did the same thing. He said, it makes sense. He said, but the people who come to you, they haven't turned their sewage pumps on. A mini trampoline will increase your lymphatic flow 10-fold. You just turn your sewer pumps on 10-fold. And all that waste on those sedentary people who you come in to see you, he says your liver can't help it, and they just got a Hertzheimer syndrome or Hertz syndrome. All those toxins coming in. He says, here's what you do. You'll never have a problem again. And that was 23 years ago. So what we did is, he says, do this. You want to do 5 minutes, 3 times a day the first week. That's using a mini trampoline. 10 minutes 3 times a day the second week. And the third week, you can go to 15 minutes twice a day, 3 times a day, whatever you want to. And you just gradually crescendo that increase. And I've never had a person having that problem again. And so when you, what's another thing that just up the road from here? Who's that place up the road that sends stuff up in space? Yeah. I was flying from Key West, and last year before last. And when we left Key West, the pilot comes across and says, if we time it just right, you'll be able to, out on the right side of the plane, see a rocket go up. Well, he timed it just right, and we got to see that rocket go up. I lived in Orlando, so I'd seen plenty of rockets go up, but never from one from the air. NASA found that when astronauts go to space, they have bone density loss because of weightlessness. You need weight-bearing exercise to maintain bone density. And so due to weightlessness, or a person who's bedbound or who isn't getting weight-bearing exercise, you have bone density loss. And so to increase that, the best tool they found when they come back from space is they put them on a mini trampoline. And that increases that bone density. So not only will that mini trampoline help with your vascular flow, but it also will help with bone density. But also it increases, when you bounce on a mini trampoline for 5 minutes, it increases the white count 3-fold for 1 hour. So for cancer folks, I'll put them on a mini trampoline every waking hour that they can be on that mini trampoline for 5 minutes. It's going to jack that white count up to help. What other questions? Yes, ma'am. We got a question over here. Anybody got a mic? There we go.
As far as the neuropathy, so I have numbness and tingling in the feet. So I think that's neuropathy. Is it the same thing? And if it's not, what's good for that? And I found that taking alpha lipoic acid has helped.
Yes.
Because I have back issues, and so I used to get the tingling of the thing going up the leg, and that helped that. So.
Yes. So yes, it can be the same thing, and I failed to mention a couple other items to help with neuropathy. Number one, look at your B12 level.
Okay.
If the B12 level is low, it can cause neuropathy. And so a low B12 can also cause short-term memory loss. And remember what we used to call OBS, organic brain syndrome? And then they changed it to Alzheimer's. And diagnosing Alzheimer's used to be terrible awful. The doc would say, do you know who the president is? Do you know what the date is? The doc didn't even know himself what the date was, and he decided if you had Alzheimer's whether or not you knew the date, and he had to look himself to know what the date was, see if you were accurate or not. Well, those early days of diagnosing Alzheimer's was pretty antiquated, and Alzheimer's was a trash can diagnosis. Well, Dr. James Green in Knoxville, Tennessee at Park West Hospital found that a B12 deficiency can cause short-term memory loss. So that's another thing as you look at your B12.
How much should you be at?
Well, a lot of them will say, you want 500, 600. I like seeing around 800 to 1,000. And Mary Lou's runs around 1,000 to 1,100. Mine runs 1,200, 1,300, and I don't even take B12.
If nothing shows up in the blood work of any deficiency from your typical blood work you get from a doctor, how relevant is that blood work and how they assess that? And,
Very.
The labs.
Very. That's why I was talking with that gal on the plane yesterday. And she says, why is it that when I go to my regular doctor, he says my labs look fine. And when I go to my integrative medicine doctor, he says, you need to work on these areas. Well, you got to look at where labs are. Labs are the average of those people. Like if you go up north, you can have different numbers based on that part of the country. I've seen it as I looked at those people's labs. And so it's the average of people. So let's say you look at a cardiac risk ratio, which is total cholesterol divided by HDL. And they say don't be below it, so 4.5. So if you're 4.49, you're okay. I don't want to be average heart attack. And so I would want to be below 3.5, maybe even below 3. I'd rather be 2.5. And so, or let's say white count. I had 5 people come in one time. Both of them had a low white count, and they were in the 3.2, 3.3, 3.4. So I called Dr. Agatha. And it's when I first went from regular health care over to lifestyle. And I said, Dr. Agatha, I got 5 people, and they have a low white count. And here's the numbers. She said, are they total vegetarians? I said, how did you know? She said, that's normal for them. Because what happens is the average people out there aren't vegetarians. And so here's how it works. Let's say it's World War II. You're in England, and the bombers come over from Germany. So you send up your fighters to go shoot the bombers down and dogfight and whatever. Well, when the bombers aren't coming across the English Canal, your fighters are sitting down on the runway waiting for radar to pick them up, and then they go up and dogfight again. When you eat meat and dairy, your pathogen load's higher, therefore your white count load is higher fighting dogfighting. But if you're a total vegetarian, then our plant-based, as Dr. T. Colin Campbell's coined it, then you're not dogfighting as much because you're not sending all that pathogen load in with all that dairy and all that meat. So a total vegetarian is going to have, their normal is going to be a lower number. So what happens is you don't want to be the average sick American. And so that's why you go to an integrated physician, he'll say, maybe not. Or like vitamin D, normal is 30 to 99. Or some now say 30 to 100. Well, if you go to Dr. Arvo Khanna, who is a neurologist that specializes in brain function, he said don't be below 60. A vitamin D below 60 can affect your cognitive function. Or Dr. Watkins, the guy that we just talked about, he wants you around 80 to 100 if you want good bone density, if you want good immune system. So you want to go to somebody that's more integrative and can say, maybe we need to tweak this up a little bit, if that answers your question. Okay, next question. Yes, ma'am.
Oh. Hi, first I want to mention one thing, and then I have a question from the husband from home. I'm from Europe, and
where?
Italy. And I would never been able to donate blood here in America. So you mentioned earlier that you can get a European blood, but as a European, I was not allowed to donate blood here in America.
Have you had any diseases?
No, the reason why they told me is because I lived in Europe during the mad cow time.
Well, we did too.
But apparently they don't accept European blood here, just to
That's
the note.
very interesting. Yeah. Well, it's a person who has European descent.
Well, I was born and raised there.
So I would be European descent.
Most American are European
Exactly. So if they're white folk, they're probably European descent. Now, it is interesting. This is interesting, y'all. In the state of Tennessee, white, if you check white, white means you're from Europe, you're from North Africa, or you're from the Middle East.
That's very broad.
Anyway,
and the question, hold on, sorry. Do you have any suggestion for someone who has protein S deficiency and is on lifetime Coumadin?
Okay, so tell me what's going on.
Protein S deficiency from grandmother, father, and
I don't know
generation.
what to do for that one.
Good. Thank
Sorry.
you. No problem.
Yes, ma'am.
I do have a question. What is a good source of vitamin B12? I have difficulty finding it. But I haven't asked you yet.
Yes, if you're looking for a plant source,
Yes.
spirulina. Spirulina is an excellent source of B12. But there's a company called Blue Bonnet, which makes a very good source. I'm sorry. No, I'm wrong. I'm thinking of another one. Help me out, Mary Lou. The B12 I use. Is it Blue Bonnet? Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, it is Blue Bonnet. That's the one I use, Blue Bonnet.
Okay.
Pardon? Yeah, that's the methylcobalamin. Yeah. Oh, good point. Yes, thank you, Mary Lou. So on B12, cobalamin means B12. But there's cyanocobalamin and there's methylcobalamin. You want methylcobalamin because methylcobalamin crosses the blood-brain barrier where cyano does not. And so methyl is going to be better absorbed. It's methylated. So you want methylcobalamin, which is methylated. And some people don't absorb non-methylated, like or MTFH or whatever that thing is. If you can get a mic.
Did you ever hear of mega food vitamins? Mega food.
Hang on just a sec. Right here behind you. Mega food vitamins?
Mega food vitamins. They're from natural sources.
Oh, yes, natural sources, yes.
And they are B12. Helped me so much that I had to back off.
Yes.
So
I am familiar with natural sources.
I recommend that.
Yes, good.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's some companies out there that are really good. Yes.
Oh, soybeans. Is it worth trying to buy organic soybeans anymore? Or is there such a thing anymore? People say none
Yes.
available.
Yes, you can get organic soybeans. Organic should not be sprayed with Roundup. When you look at your food, you want food that, when you look at this, where it comes from, food comes from seeds. Now, this is very interesting, worth paying attention to. There's heirloom seeds and there's hybrid seeds, and this is important. University of North Carolina found that hybrid seeds uptake approximately only 40% of the nutrients out of the soil that the heirloom seeds do. So based on which seeds you put in the ground, you may only get 40 cents on a dollar of the nutrition out of that available nutrients in the soil. The next thing that's very important that heirloom does is, in 1903, the United States started spraying food with a chemical which came from a drug. It was a byproduct of a drug, in order to get longer shelf life. Now, Adam and Eve didn't have to worry about shelf life. They just went out there and picked it and ate it. And growing up on the farm, we didn't have to worry about shelf life. You just went out and picked it when it was vine ripe, put it up, or ate it. But when you're shipping it from California, when you're shipping it from Chile, you can have some damage and driving the thing, bouncing around, or it takes so long, it starts breaking down. So what they started doing was spraying it with a drug, a byproduct of a drug, and that helped some. And then they found out they could hybridize it. And then they were hybridizing out the chemicals that were causing it to break down or rot. Well, guess what? We found out it wasn't rotting. The chemicals that they were getting rid of was amylase, protease, and lipase. It was actually digesting. And so God put in our food to aid with digestion amylase, protease, and lipase, digestive enzymes, if we eat heirloom. But the hybrid, it's been hybridized mostly out. So there's multiple reasons that you want to look. Not only is it, because you can, and why do I say this? Because you can have organic food and it's hybrid and not heirloom.
Thank you.
Okay. She has one more question over there.
Okay, so my question is, if a person have problems with high blood pressure and the lower number, the systolic number is consistently at 90 with or without medication, do you have any recommendations?
The diastolic number is down around 90?
Yes.
You want to get to cause. You can take some things like hawthorn berry, but you want to get to cause. There's several causes of hypertension. Number one, the number one in America is stress. Stress raises cortisol, stress lowers potassium, boom, you have hypertension. It is the number one cause. Number two is dehydration. Dehydration affects the thickness of the blood, the viscosity of the blood. It's just a hydraulic thing. The dehydration causes the brain not to work as well, and therefore you're prone to the number one problem, stress. Dehydration, you don't urinate as much, and it's through urination that you get rid of sodium. Dehydration affects the kidneys, and the kidneys are the switches that regulate blood pressure. Dehydration, it affects your conductivity, we talked about last night. And so when you're dehydrated, the electricity goes up, which means your blood pressure goes up. Sleep deprivation affects blood pressure. Your kidney function, just because you're in renal failure or renal problems, will affect blood pressure because the kidneys are the switches that regulate blood pressure. It can be because you're outside ideal body weight. And a lot of research on being obese can cause high blood pressure. It can be because you have atherosclerosis or clogged arteries. If you have a garden hose and you want more pressure to wash the car, you're going to put a smaller tip on the end. And so when you have that lumen size diminish because of plaque buildup or the atherosclerosis, it's going to increase your pressure. Or you may have hardening arteries and you have a pump, and as the pump goes and the pipe can flex, but then if the pipe goes rigid, your internal pressure is going to go up because you don't have that movement of the pipe because it's flexible. And so hardening of the arteries are going to cause it to go up. Or it could be a cardiac issue, a heart problem that's causing it. So you want to find each one of those, rule those out, fix those problems. That's the best way to reverse hypertension, the most effective way. But yes, you can use hawthornberry, works very well. Hawthornberry works like 2 different types of blood pressure medicine. But remember, hawthornberry has a half-life of just 4 hours, and so you need to take it 4 times a day. Hawthorn, berry, Berry. Okay, yes ma'am.
I'm sorry, but we do have to stop. But if you come back at 10 o'clock in the morning, we'll start over. And we're going to have a really good day tomorrow. And we'll be talking about how to effectively manage stress, anxiety, depression, and optimal immunity. So we can continue on. And then at 1:30, when we're finished, we'll have a light lunch. Just a couple things. I want to thank everybody, and I want to thank you, Walt. This was wonderful. Want to turn in your name badges and your pins when we're finished here today. And there is the little church in the back where you can give a love offering for Walt and Mary Lou. And thanks everybody again. And we'll have prayer. Our Father in heaven, we thank you for this day. We thank you for Walt and Mary Lou being here, and we thank you for all the knowledge we've gained. And we pray, dear God, that you will help us to use this knowledge to your honor and glory. Dear God, we're in a sinful world, and we're in a world with a lot of diseases. We have a lot of health needs. And we thank you for bringing people such as Walt to us to help us to learn, to know, and grow. Guide us as we go through the rest of this day and tomorrow and into a new week. Thank you for all your many blessings. And forgive us, dear God, where we fall short. This I pray in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.